In order to afford the dowry to buy a house for her younger brother, Tham Bin married County Kwan Than, a soldier who was often away. On their wedding night, they slept separately. Not only did she vow never to let him touch her for the rest of her life, but she also didn't even come to see him one last time before he sacrificed his life. It wasn't until Tham Bin was sorting through his belongings and found County Kwan Than's diary that she discovered the truth. He had written, "I finally married the girl I love the most. She's so beautiful." Reading this, Tham Bin was stunned. This rough, cold, and serious man had loved her for so long. Looking back at their marriage, County Kwan Than was so indifferent that even on her deathbed, Tham Bin couldn't understand why a man like him would love her. She only wanted to hear the answer from his own mouth. Unexpectedly, her dream came true. Tham Bin returned to 48 years ago, the day she married the rough man in the military district. In her past life, Tham Bin was a failure. She had no children. She bought a house and a car for her younger brother and nephew, then left her entire estate to her nephew in her will. When Tham Bin was seriously ill and bedridden, her nephew heartlessly pulled her oxygen tube. On her deathbed, she remembered the man who died early but left his entire fortune to her. That year, she married him, causing chaos in the County family and even sending their belongings back to her parents' home. A few years later, he sacrificed his life. Despite what she did, his will still left all his allowance to her, along with an apology for wasting her youth. Lying on the bed with a chaotic mind, Tham Bin was lost in thought. The sky was already dark, and Ko Kwan Than still hadn't entered the room. 6 months ago, Tham Bin reluctantly married him. To avoid consummating the marriage in the middle of winter, she intentionally caught a cold and ran a high fever. Ko Kwan Than had to return to the army for an urgent mission, so nothing ever happened between them. Ko Kwan Than was a very intelligent man. Tham Bin couldn't hide her thoughts from him. He knew she was unwilling, so in her past life, he used the excuse of sleeping separately. Would he do the same in this life? Tham Bin secretly calculated. There were only 4 years left until he sacrificed himself. If this life was going to end the same way, then no matter what, she had to be good to him during these years. Thinking it over, Tham Bin decided to rush out. She knew County Kwan Than was bathing in the bathroom next to the pigsty. She heard the gushing water. She took a deep breath, gathered her courage, and ran straight there. The creaky door offered no defense. "Get out!" Her eyes widened. Ko Kwan Than quickly wrapped a towel around himself and came out. A cold voice commanded Tham Bin to get his clothes to change. She blushed, grabbed his clothes, and quickly ran away. On her way out, her arm hit the door frame, and it hurt badly. Back in the room, Tham Bin's heart was still pounding. All she could see were the small drops of water rolling on his tanned skin. She quickly hid under the blanket. Her arm ached again. When County Kwan Than came back, he was wearing nothing but an old piece of cloth wrapped around his body. Seeing the cloth, Tham Bin suddenly felt a bit disappointed. He scowled, his face dark, and coldly said, "You took my clean clothes." At that moment, Tham Bin's mind was in a mess. She didn't care about clean or dirty clothes. It was just an excuse, but she couldn't let him stand there. "Who told you to scold me?" As soon as he scolded her, her eyes turned red and watery, her expression incredibly aggrieved. Ko Kwan Than was speechless for a moment. He took his clothes and went out. When he returned, he was wearing a military green, sleeveless shirt and shorts. His arms and shoulders were exposed. The remaining drops of water ran down his muscular lines. Tham Bin was mesmerized until he came to the bed and stood still. Only then did she snap out of it. Ko Kwan Than looked at Tham Bin. His eyes slightly narrowed, as if he was thinking about something. Tham Bin's breath seemed to stop. This never happened in her previous life. The atmosphere suddenly became humid, making it suffocating. Just as Tham Bin was about to speak, County Kwan Than grabbed her hand. "Do you know what you just did?" His low voice suddenly rang out, interrupting Tham Bin's chaotic thoughts. "It doesn't hurt." Though it didn't hurt, Tham Bin still had to pretend to bite her lip hard. But it was clear that County Kwan Than didn't believe her. He took out a bottle of red medicine and cotton from somewhere, and gently applied the medicine to the wound on her hand. The medicine was cold and made contact with the wound, making Tham Bin feel a sting. She bit her lip and frowned, but didn't make a sound. Ko Kwan Than glanced at her and said coldly, "You reap what you sow." After saying that, he let go of her hand, put the medicine away, and prepared to open the door. Seeing him about to leave, Tham Bin quickly called out, "Where are you going?" Ko Kwan Than stopped, turned around, and asked, "Do you think about how I feel? You sleep in the same room with me. What will my mother say when she finds out?" "My mother won't say anything." Bin insisted. She won't say it to your face. What about after you leave? You're listening to a story on Ace Manhwa's channel, and the editor is commenting in the comments. Who might I be? Who knows, guess? Bin's face was sullen. I don't care. You can try to step out of this door tonight. Ko Kwan Thon seemed helpless, but in the end, he didn't leave. He just took a blanket out of the cabinet, spread a mat on the floor, and lay down in silence. The night was unusually quiet. Hearing her heart beat wildly, Bin felt that she couldn't continue like this. She clutched her chest, let out a small scream, jumped off the bed, ran to where County Kwan Thon was lying on the floor, and crawled under the blanket with him. Ko Kwan Thon shot up. His eyes in the dark gleamed with a cold, watchful look like a wild beast. What are you doing? He asked, as if accusing her. Bin trembled, but her mind was still working fast. She pointed to her bed. There's a mouse! Ko Kwan Thon got up, turned on the bright light, looked in her blanket for a while, and then turned back to her, asking coldly, Where's the mouse? His tall figure was like a tower, his sharp eyes staring at her. Under his pressure, Bin muttered in a low voice, There was one, but it probably ran away now. Ko Kwan Thon stood there like a statue, saying nothing. Bin closed her eyes. He didn't speak, so she didn't speak either. Finally, he spoke first. It's gone. Go back to your bed to sleep. Oh. Bin slowly crawled out of his mat and sat on the edge of her bed, watching him turn off the light and lie down on the mat on the floor. She smiled slightly, then ran back to him and quickly crawled under the blanket with him. What's wrong now? Ko Kwan Thon's voice in the dark was clearly impatient, but she didn't care. Bin snuggled up to him, hugging him tightly. I'm still afraid the mouse will come back. Ko Kwan Thon was silent for a while, then said coldly, Suit yourself. After that, he lay still as if he didn't want to pay attention to her anymore. Bin leaned against him and closed her eyes, the corners of her mouth turning up. But in the dark, he suddenly spoke. I'm on leave for the next few days. Let's find some time to get a divorce. Huh? What did you say? Bin shot up and stared at him in the dark. You're so angry, County Kwan Thon. You're a terrible man. Ko Kwan Thon was so scolded that he sat up. Bin said angrily, I'm already married to you. The wedding was held lavishly. Everyone in the village knows I'm your wife. And now, just after we got married, you want a divorce? What do you expect me to do with my life now? Bin questioned him. Ko Kwan Thon was stunned for a moment, then said, I can tell everyone it's my fault. That I'm not good enough. So what? I'm still the one who will have to endure other people's gossip. I was a proper unmarried woman, and now I'm divorced. Who else will marry me? Who would even want to marry me? Besides, you're not even fair to me. What will people say about me? Bin grilled him. Ko Kwan Thon was speechless for a moment. Seeing him say nothing, Bin secretly laughed and continued. I don't care. I'm already married to you. You have to be responsible for me. You're away all year round. Don't you know how much you owe me? And you still want a divorce from me, County Kwan Thon? I'm telling you, between us, only I have the right to ask for a divorce. You are not qualified. After saying that, Bin lay down, turning her back to County Kwan Thon. Feeling the silence of the man behind her, she also felt that she was being unreasonable. But if she didn't do it, how could she extinguish his intention to divorce? County Kwan Thon, you're so good, you actually want a divorce. This didn't happen in my past life. Until the next morning, Bin still maintained a cold face. The atmosphere during breakfast was very heavy, although today's breakfast was quite delicious, because County Kwan Thon was back. So each person got an extra egg. No one ate with pleasure. Not even her parents-in-law dared to speak. For the past 6 months, since Bin came to the county family, she had been breaking things and causing a scene. Her temper was truly unbearable for anyone. Also eating was Lee Chi-Vien, County Kwan Thon's son, but not his biological son. He was the son of his fallen comrade. When his comrade sacrificed his life, there was no one to take care of the child, so County Kwan Thon brought him home to raise. Now, Chi-Vien was probably 5 years old, and had been at the county family's house for almost a year. Because of this child, County Kwan Thon's fiancé, his childhood sweetheart, broke off their engagement. The Ko family, in anger, then spent money to marry Bin. Chi-Vien probably knew that he was a burden to County Kwan Thon, and even to the entire county family. So he was very careful and quiet, rarely speaking up. His existence was almost imperceptible. In her past life, Bin hated this child. She never showed him a good face. The powdered milk, nutritious food, clothes, and shoes that County Kwan Thon sent back, she mostly took back to her parents' house. This child always wore ill-fitting clothes as he grew up. But it was this child who, In her final days, when Tan Bin was seriously ill, came to the hospital to visit her, cooked hot soup for her, and even gave her money. But that small amount of money ultimately ended up in her nephew's pocket. Looking at the small Chi Vian, Tan Bin felt a pang of bitterness. She immediately used her chopsticks to put the egg from her bowl into his. This action almost made Chi Vian drop his bowl. The others also looked at her. This was truly very unusual. The old Tan Bin never yielded to anyone. She ate the good food first and took the good things back to her parents' house. Respect for elders and consideration for others did not exist in her. Tan Bin also felt that she was a bit abrupt, so she coughed a little. She felt uncomfortable and didn't want to eat anymore. Chi Vian lowered his head. That's right, Brother Tan. You left in a hurry on your wedding day and didn't even go back to her parents' house. After we finish eating, why don't you take Tan Bin to her parents' house for a visit? Auntie Sao said softly, looking at Tan Bin's expression. Ko Kwan Tan quickly replied, Okay. Auntie Sao and Kodai Pu then went to prepare things for Tan Bin to take back to her parents' house. By the time Tan Bin finished eating, the things were ready. She saw 4 large pieces of pork, a basket of eggs, a chicken, a duck, a fish, 2 bags of powdered milk, and 2 new pieces of fabric. In the 70s, this was already a very generous gift. Auntie Sao said to County Kwan Tan, You should also give her some money for good luck. As she said this, she looked at Tan Bin's face to see if she was satisfied. She knew Tan Bin was someone who liked to hoard things to take back to her parents' house. Ko Kwan Tan replied, Yes. Tan Bin then spoke up, Wait! Auntie Sao's face changed, thinking she found it too little. Fan Bin took out 2 of powdered milk aside. This is for Chi Vian to drink. He's at a growing age, and powdered milk is good for him. In the countryside at that time, powdered milk was a rarity. Then she chose a piece of meat and a fish from the remaining pile and handed them to County Kwan Tan. This is enough. Auntie Sao thought she was seeing things, her eyes wide. Ko Kwan Tan also looked surprised. Let's go, Tan Bin said, pulling his arm and heading out. Their home was in the next village, and they had to walk. Ko Kwan Tan took long strides. Tan Bin couldn't keep up. Every time he walked fast, she would stand still, staring at him. After he had gone a little way, he noticed she wasn't following and stopped to wait for her. Only after she caught up did they continue together. This stop and go took almost 2 hours before they reached the Lam family's house. At this time, Tan Bin's grandmother was still alive. Her younger brother was in elementary school, and she had 2 younger sisters who were 2 years younger than her. Upon entering the house, everyone was very happy, especially her grandmother, who welcomed them very warmly. However, her grandmother's eyes then glanced past Tan Bin to County Kwan Tan. When she saw that he was only carrying a piece of meat and a fish, her eyes clearly darkened. Ko Kwan Tan was very sharp. How could he not notice? He stood there, a little uneasy. Tan Bin pulled his arm hard, pulling him down to sit. Her mother took the meat and fish into the kitchen, then sat down to chat with Tan Bin and Ko Kwan Tan. She said that her 2 younger sisters and younger brother had not yet returned from working in the fields, then started talking about everything under the sun in the village. Then she got to the main point. Do you remember the Lam family at the end of the village? Their daughter found a husband in town, and he bought her a very impressive bicycle, her mother said with a face full of admiration. Tan Bin answered casually, Oh. This also happened in her past life. After her mother said this, she pressured County Kwan Tan to get her a bicycle ticket. Using County Kwan Tan's money, she immediately bought a bicycle for her parents, family. Her younger brother rode the bicycle around every day. Her mother, not getting the desired response, was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, Shude is also old enough to get married. Our family's conditions are a little better, so we can find a good match. Yes, her sister's name was Chu Day. The reason for this name was self-explanatory. In her past life, her sister married before she was 20 and married a man who was better than her, but it was in exchange for a NDT 500 dowry. The only problem was that her husband was a cripple and also beat his wife. Her sister was pregnant twice and was beaten until she miscarried both times. Because she could no longer have children, the beatings became more frequent. In the end, she died from an illness at a very young age. Thinking about this, I thought, maybe I should change the name of the 2 sisters. Shude sounds so unpleasant. Her mother laughed and said, It's a small matter. We already have your younger brother, so if we change it, we change it. As for the bicycle, her mother looked at County Kwan Tan. This matter, let him figure it out. Ko Kwan Tan easily agreed. Suddenly, he felt a small hand gripping his thigh tightly. Tan Bin immediately said, This is difficult. We don't have a ticket. Even our own family doesn't have a bicycle yet. The scene from her previous life appeared before her eyes. How her mother had demanded she buy a bike for her younger brother. Everything started from now. Now it's a bicycle, a watch. Later it's a car, a house, all their assets. Her mother's smile became strained. Is that so? How did the Lam family get a ticket? Because their son-in-law works in town. Is that so? Why didn't you marry me to someone in town before but married me to a soldier? Soldiers are poor and have no capability, Bin said bluntly. Her mother was so angry her face turned red. The word sold off was really unpleasant to hear. Her mother's face changed. Ko Kwan Than was also unhappy. Bin knew County Kwan Than was capable. But what was the use of that empty title? In her previous life, it was precisely because she was so obsessed with empty titles and gave in to every demand that things turned out so badly. Ko Kwan Than didn't think so. He spoke up again. Although it's a bit difficult, but before he could finish, he was pinched hard by Bin, as if she wanted to pinch off a piece of his flesh. Okay, fine. Ko Kwan Than fell silent again. Bin got up. I'll go to the field to see if Dad and my 2 younger sisters are home. There's a lot of work to do. Ko Kwan Than immediately tried to take out the good luck money. His thigh was pinched for the 3rd time. And so, the good luck money also couldn't be taken out. Bin's mother told them to stay for dinner and then go home. Dad and Shudae will be back to eat soon. Bin didn't stay to eat. She really went to the field. She greeted her dad and called her 2 younger sisters to a corner to talk. This was her main purpose for returning this time. Her 2 younger sisters were covered in sweat, their clothes stained. It was clear that the farm work was very hard. It was indeed a busy season, but her younger brother was nowhere to be seen. Although she had been through it once before, Bin still felt uneasy. She looked at her small sisters and asked with a heavy heart, "Has Mom decided who she's going to marry you to?" Her 2 younger sisters were stunned and nodded, their eyes sad. Bin took the girls' hands and slipped some money into their hands. "Don't agree. Keep this money for yourselves to buy notebooks and pens. See if you can buy books. If you can, buy them. If you can't, I'll figure it out. Study hard and get into college." Her 2 younger sisters couldn't believe it, their eyes wide. Getting into college was the most talked about topic among students in the village this year, but this matter was even more unbelievable for a rural girl like her than going to the sky to pick the moon. "I heard Mom wants to marry you to someone. You must refuse. If you can't, come to the county village and find me. I will stand up for you," Bin said firmly. Looking at her 2 younger sisters working in the field, her eyes welled up with tears. His time. She was determined to change her 2 younger sisters' lives. On the way back, Bin held out her hand to County Kwan Than. Ko Kwan Than looked at the small hand in front of him, confused. "Where's the good luck money?" Bin asked coldly. Ko Kwan Than was speechless because on the way there, he had already given the good luck money to his mother-in-law. Inside was NDT 80. "Give it here," Bin said with a serious face. Ko Kwan Than couldn't give it to her. "I mean, all your cash in your salary book." In her past life, County Kwan Than also gave her everything after this visit. When he returned to the army, he gave her all his assets. "I heard you're giving me this." Ko Kwan Than immediately took out all the cash on him and gave it to Bin. The salary book was at home and he hadn't brought it with him. "Okay, give it to me when we get home." Bin took the money. "County Kwan Than, I have to establish 3 rules with you." Ko Kwan Than looked at her in surprise. "You are in the army all year round. I take care of this family. I also have to raise Chivien. The expenses are very high, so everything in this house has to go through me. You are not allowed to make decisions on your own. Every time you spend money, you have to get my permission." Ko Kwan Than was still silent. Bin frowned. "Do you agree or not?" "I agree." County Kwan Than's mouth opened, so decisive. Bin was satisfied. "Okay, let's go home." Ko Kwan Than was clearly relieved, thinking she wouldn't ask about the good luck money anymore. But he was relieved too soon. Ko Kwan Than married a wife who liked to cause trouble. This was an undeniable fact. Even if she was reborn, this image would not change. After walking a few steps, Bin started acting up again. She deliberately fell behind County Kwan Than. Ko Kwan Than noticed she had disappeared again and stood still to wait, just like before. But this time, Bin did not follow as before. She still stood still. Ko Kwan Than had no choice but to turn back. Bin looked at the tall man walking towards her, her heart warm. He was really handsome. His features were handsome, clear, and strong. In her past life, was she blind? Did she only like pale, scholarly types? "What's wrong?" he asked, standing in front of her. Bin's eyes were watery. and she covered her mouth. "My hand hurts and I can't walk." She showed him the place where the red medicine had been applied on her arm. What is the causal relationship between a sore hand and not being able to walk? Ko Kwan-than didn't quite understand, but he still said, "Then I'll walk slower." That was the only solution he could think of. "I can't walk." Tham Bin drew out her words, stomping her feet, her eyes still watery as she looked at him. Ko Kwan-than didn't know what to do. "Will you carry me on your back?" Ko Kwan-than was stunned. "Or you can carry me in your arms." Ko Kwan-than hesitated for a moment and finally chose to carry Tham Bin on his back. Getting her wish, lying on his back, feeling his firm shoulders. She leaned her head against his shoulder. She could feel that County Kwan-than was trying to avoid her, but his hot skin seemed to be responding to her. She hugged him tighter and buried her face in his broad chest. Ko Kwan-than seemed to have been hurt by her grip and groaned softly. Tham Bin couldn't resist and blew gently into his ear. He shivered, his face turning red. Then she saw his ears turn red. "Don't cause trouble." A stern voice rang out, but that didn't scare Tham Bin. She laughed on his back. He carried her all the way back to the village. At the entrance of the village, they met Mrs. Xuan. She saw them from afar and called out, "Fan, come quickly and see. Your Chibian is fighting with someone." Everyone was trying to pull them apart but couldn't, seeing their posture. Mrs. Xuan was stunned. She wanted to look but didn't dare to. Ko Kwan-than didn't pay attention to that. He was only worried about his son. Hearing that, he put Tham Bin down and ran. Tham Bin also rushed to follow him. Fighting. In her past life, Chi Vian had gotten into trouble because of these two words. The child was very smart, but in the countryside at that time, people didn't value education. Chi Vian didn't get to go to school much. After County Kwan-than sacrificed his life, his grandparents grew old by 10 years and no longer had the strength to manage him. He made many friends who valued loyalty and often stood up for his friends. In the end, he caused a big incident, seriously injuring someone and going to jail. But that was a later story. Chi Vian at this stage should be well behaved, so what exactly happened for him to get into a fight? Tham Bin anxiously ran to the riverbank. Indeed, she saw Chi Vian and Dai Fat fighting. Several adults couldn't pull them apart. Chi Vian was only 5 years old at this time, skinny, only half the size of Dai Fat, but it was Dai Fat who was screaming. When she got closer, she saw that Chi Vian was biting Dai Fat's shoulder tightly. No matter how the adults pulled, he refused to let go. The more Dai Fat was pulled, the more it hurt, and he cried loudly. "Lead Chi Vian!" Ko Kwan-than arrived and shouted coldly. Chi Vian immediately let go. Amidst Dai Fat's cries and the villagers' gossip, he was carried home by County Kwan-than. Chi Vian's personality was very stubborn. Otherwise, he wouldn't have caused such a big incident later. At this time, his face was full of scratches, but he still gritted his teeth and refused to say the reason for the fight. Ko Kwan-than punished him by making him stand facing the wall. Chi Vian silently and obediently went to the room and stood facing the wall without saying anything. Before long, the party secretary arrived and invited County Kwan-than to discuss building a dam. As soon as County Kwan-than left, Tham Bin tried to talk to Chi Vian, but before, the relationship between her and Chi Vian was not good. The two of them ignored each other. Now, breaking the ice required effort. Everything has to have a beginning, right? Tham Bin brought him a cup of hot milk. Chi Vian glanced at it and turned his face away without saying anything. "It's good for children to drink powdered milk. You'll grow taller. Don't you want to be taller than Dai Fat?" Tham Bin brought the cup to his mouth. Chi Vian hesitated for a moment and then drank it all. Tham Bin smiled. "That's right. You have to drink it every day from now on, you hear. If mom isn't home, make it yourself." For some reason, Chi Vian's eyes turned red, but out of pride, he turned his face away to hide it. "What's wrong?" Tham Bin asked gently. I will leave. Mom doesn't have to do this." He was just a child. No matter how stubborn, he couldn't hold it in anymore. Tears just streamed down his face. Then Bin didn't know why he said that. Why does he suddenly want to leave? Just as she was about to ask, she heard a commotion outside. Big Mouth Auntie Mue led a whole group of people to the county family's house to cause a scene. Her voice was loud and clear outside the door. "Auntie Sao, bring that brat of a boy out here." Tham Bin heard the husband and children. Auntie Sao meekly went out. Auntie Sao was a kind person. Otherwise, in her previous life, she wouldn't have let her do whatever she wanted. But how could such a kind person fight against a group of shrewish, quarrelsome women? Then Bin couldn't continue to comfort Chi Vian. She immediately opened the door and rushed out. Behind her, Chi Vian's childish voice rang out. "Mom, don't. but the rest of his words were cut off by Than Bin slamming the door shut. There must be a reason for the fight, but now was not the time to ask about it in detail. She first had to get rid of this group of people. Outside, it was getting noisier and noisier. Than Bin straightened up, her aura as imposing as County Quan Than's. She even imitated him, squinting her eyes and scolding loudly. Auntie Moi, listen carefully. Chi Vian's father sacrificed his life for our country. The reason you can be at home working in the fields and gossiping today is because of the thousands upon thousands of soldiers like Chi Vian's father, who weren't afraid to sacrifice themselves, who treated death as light as a feather to protect our peace and our good life. And you dare to call Chi Vian a little bastard? Are you worthy of the soldiers who sacrificed themselves for a great cause? Are you worthy of the soldiers who are still protecting our country? I'm telling you, my Chi Vian is not a little bastard. He is the son of a hero. All the soldiers in Brother Than's unit are his fathers. All the wives of the soldiers are his mothers. Than Bin's righteous words scared Auntie Moi. The Ko family had an extra child, but no one had ever said he was the son of a fallen soldier. Now that Auntie Moi knew, she didn't dare to say anything more about Chi Vian, but she was so angry that she shouted, "Is she his mother? She's a shameless woman. What right does she have to be the mother of a fallen soldier's son?" Auntie Sao's face turned pale. She grabbed Than Bin tightly and pleaded with Auntie Moi in a trembling voice. "Auntie Moi, please don't say any more. I'm sorry, I'll come to your house and apologize later. Please don't say any more. I'm begging you." The two words, shameless woman, shocked Than Bin. Hearing this sentence, it seemed her mother-in-law also knew something. Suddenly, a loud shout came from behind. "You're not allowed to apologize! Mom is not wrong!" A small figure blocked Than Bin and Auntie Sao. It was Chi Vian who had rushed out. Than Bin pulled Chi Vian back, hugging him tightly and holding him so he wouldn't be beaten by this group of people. The boy was agitated and yelled, "If one person does something, one person takes responsibility. If you're so good, then hit me. You're not allowed to bully Grandma. You can kill me. You can chop me up. I don't care. My dad wasn't wrong." Although his words were heroic and brave, he died before he could even go to battle. Ko Quan Than, who knew when he had returned, grabbed Chi Vian by the collar. The boy's legs were still kicking wildly in the air. "Let me down, you coward! Aren't you going to ask what they're saying about your wife in the village? Aren't you going to stand up for your wife? Are you even a man?" Than Bin, County Quan Than's wife. "He's talking about me? What does this have to do with me?" Ko Quan Than threw Chi Vian into the house. His tall figure blocked Than Bin and Auntie Sao, separating them from the noisy crowd of women behind. "Everyone, go home. Don't cause a scene anymore." His low voice carried a comforting power, gently touching Than Bin's eardrums through the noise. Than Bin shook her head. "No, I want to know what Auntie Moi was going to say. The two words, shameless woman, are too heavy for a woman in the countryside." "Go inside," County Quan Than commanded in a serious tone, his eyes becoming imposing. Than Bin hesitated. Ko Quan Than frowned. "Do you want me to throw you in too?" Than Bin finally turned and went inside. Ko Quan Than also closed the door. Than Bin, her mother-in-law, and Chi Vian were all locked inside. Chi Vian was still yelling outside, "You're not allowed to apologize. No one is allowed to apologize. If anyone says anything bad again, I'll hit them every time I hear it." He was completely different from the quiet and timid child he usually was, as if a seal had been broken and a fierce tiger had been released from its cage. Outside, County Quan Than stood tall and proud, his eyes sweeping over the crowd. Everyone unconsciously took a step back. Ko Quan Than's power was truly too strong, but Auntie Moi was not resigned. She still grumbled, "Than, did I touch a sore spot? You're not gonna let me talk about your wife's misdeeds, huh?" In the countryside, there was an unwritten rule that men should not interfere when women fight and curse at each other, otherwise they would be ridiculed. That was also the reason why they knew County Quan Than was at home but still dared to come and cause trouble. The people Auntie Moi brought with her were initially a little scared. Hearing this, they weren't afraid anymore and began to ridicule him. "That's right! What's wrong with saying it? Is it not the truth? Lam Tham Bin was already fooling around with that low-life Cao Thin early on. She's not pure anymore. That low-life Cao Thin said so himself. Lam Tham Bin has a mole on her chest. Lam Tham Bin, do you dare to take off your clothes and show everyone? Prove it! Than, don't think you can be unreasonable just because you're a soldier. If your wife dares to cheat on you, can't others talk about it? Than, does it feel good to be cheated on?" Than Bin was stunned. Cao Thin was the hooligan in the village. Yesterday morning, she was craving wild fruit and went up the mountain to pick some. She didn't expect to run into Cao Thin. He made lewd advances, which scared her so much that she ran away, falling and rolling down the hill. Luckily, a tree stopped her. Otherwise, she would have rolled to the foot of the mountain. During that fall, she dropped her handkerchief. When she rolled down, her clothes were probably also lifted. At that time, she didn't pay any attention. She didn't expect it to turn into a rumor like this. In this era, in a remote countryside, the consequences of a woman being involved in such a rumor were hard to imagine. She didn't know what County Kwantan would think. Would he believe the rumors? But the noise outside suddenly stopped after those sentences. It became completely quiet. What did County Kwantan do? Curious, Chi Vian tiptoed and peeked out the door to check the situation outside. There was no one there. Chi Vian immediately ran out. Chi Vian! Than Bin was worried and also ran out. She only saw a group of people walking away aggressively. Ko Kwantan was leading the way. The women from Auntie Moy's family were walking behind. Chi Vian was trailing at the very end. Than Bin quickly chased after them and pulled Chi Vian back. The group of people seemed to have forgotten about Chi Vian. She only chased after County Kwantan and asked, "Than, what are you going to do? Your family's causing trouble, and you're still going to beat people? Than, if you dare to lay a hand on my family today, I'll sue you." Auntie Moy knew County Kwantan didn't hit women, but she was afraid he would go look for her husband. So she desperately kept making noise, leading people to follow him. It wasn't until County Kwantan passed their house that they stopped. Ko Kwantan went straight to the hooligan Cao Thin. He found him sleeping soundly by the field after drinking. Ko Kwantan pulled him up and punched him in the stomach to wake him up. Than Bin had witnessed County Kwantan's punch in her past life. It was a real iron fist. She had seen him punch a barrel and go right through it. Cao Thin cried and cursed as he was being punched, spouting obscene words. As a result, he got another punch in the cheek. Cao Thin screamed miserably, spitting out a mouthful of blood and a tooth. This scene really scared the people around him. There were fights in the village, but they were just women pulling hair and scratching faces. At most, they would bite each other. They had never seen a punch that knocked out a tooth. Cao Thin finally saw that the person hitting him was County Kwantan. He immediately pointed at him and cursed. "Ko, don't think you can bully me just because you're strong. I'll sue you." A sharp, childish voice rang out. "Go ahead and sue him. If you don't sue him, you're a coward. You're ruining a soldier's marriage. You're going to go to jail." Than Bin looked at Chi Vian, who was jumping up and down in her arms, speechless. How could a boy so young know about these things? But this sentence was really effective. Cao Thin was scared. Ko Kwantan punched him again. Cao Thin screamed miserably, I didn't sleep with your wife. I was just bragging. I just picked up the handkerchief. It fell on the ground, and I picked it up. She doesn't have a mole on her chest. I was just talking nonsense. Don't hit me anymore. It was just nonsense." Every time he said a word, County Kwantan would punch and kick him. And Chi Vian next to him was cheering, "Kill him, kill him." Than Bin was really worried. If he kept hitting him like this, he would kill Cao Thin. Cao Thin couldn't talk anymore. His whole body was like a puddle, letting County Kwantan kick him around. Auntie Sao was also afraid that something would happen, and ran up to hold County Kwantan tightly, stopping him from hitting him. She spat on the limp Cao Thin. "For talking nonsense and slandering people, you should go to jail." Cao Thin no longer reacted. Ko Kwantan's eyes were as sharp as a knife. They suddenly moved from Cao Thin to the women who were causing trouble. He glared at them like the Grim Reaper. The women couldn't help but retreat. Some even trembled. Ko Kwantan's face was ferocious, and his murderous aura was palpable. He said, "Who else dares to talk nonsense? This is the result. My fist doesn't distinguish between men and women." After this commotion, it was almost evening. In the twilight, he stood there like an iron tower. His gaze swept over anyone, and they couldn't help but shiver. The villagers who were watching the show began to whisper, "What's going on? It's a women's matter, and Than is interfering too?" "That's right. He even intended to hit women. Does Than not care about his reputation anymore?" Ko Kwantan ignored the whispers. After intimidating everyone, he turned and walked back, his face as black as a thundercloud. Auntie Sao stayed behind to deal with the aftermath. After all, it was a fact that Chi Vian bit someone, so they still had to pay for it. She also promised Auntie Moy that she would bring eggs and milk powder to her son to nourish him. Thon Bin had already taken Chi Vian and left. On the way, she saw a figure in a green shirt flash behind a tree. When she went to check, no one was there. She didn't pay much attention, thinking it was just someone watching the show, and hurried home with Chi Vian. When County Kwan Thon and her mother-in-law returned, Thon Bin had already set the table. The family ate in silence. The atmosphere was terrifyingly suffocating. Thon Bin secretly looked at County Kwan Thon a few times. His expression had not changed. She didn't know what he was thinking. In the evening, while she was taking a bath, Thon Bin was still thinking about County Kwan Thon's strange attitude. Suddenly, the bathroom door was pushed open. Thon Bin was startled and quickly covered herself. She looked out and saw that the person standing outside the door was her mother-in-law. "Oh, you're taking a bath? I thought no one was here," Auntie Sao said, her eyes sweeping over her chest. On Thon Bin's fair chest, there was clearly a mole. Auntie Sao closed the door and left. Thon Bin then understood that her mother-in-law's accidental burst into the room was probably intentional. Night fell, and the whole village was quiet. It was time for bed, but County Kwan Thon had not returned to the room. Thon Bin tossed and turned. After her mother-in-law saw the mole on her chest, would she say something to County Kwan Thon? Thinking of this, she couldn't lie still anymore and got up to go outside. She heard a low voice talking in her mother-in-law's room. She went closer and pressed her ear to the door. It was her mother-in-law's voice. "Thon, I think what that low-life cow Thin said might not be fake. Don't hide it from me anymore. Does your wife have a mole or not? Don't you know?" Ko Kwan Thon didn't answer. Thon Bin thought to herself, he really doesn't know. He hasn't even touched me yet. How could he know? She only heard her mother-in-law's voice again. "When you're outside, you have to save face for the family. You gritted your teeth and beat that low-life cow Thin so he wouldn't dare to talk nonsense. But what do we have to hide from each other? I just looked, and your wife really has a mole. If she didn't have anything going on with that low-life cow Thin, how would he know?" "Don't say any more," Ko Kwan Thon shouted coldly. "What do you mean, don't say any more? When you're at home, the villagers don't dare to talk nonsense. But what about when you leave? At that time, your father and I will probably be pointed at so much we can't even hold our heads up." Ko Kwan Thon was silent again. "Say something. We can't keep this daughter-in-law anymore. She married into... as if we brought a queen to worship. She also constantly throws tantrums and dishes, making sarcastic remarks. We thought that because you're not home all year, we should be tolerant. But we can't be tolerant about this. In the old days, this would have gotten her drowned in a pond." No matter what Auntie Sao said, County Kwan Thon remained silent. It wasn't until Auntie Sao said, "What are you still thinking about? When you met her, she didn't like you. She likes the handsome, pale, scholarly type. That low-life cow Thin, although he's a scoundrel, has a fair face." It was this sentence that seemed to have touched his masculine pride. He finally spoke in a firm tone. "Don't say another word." Inside, a sound of a chair falling over was heard. He was about to come out. Tan Bin quickly ran back to her room and lay down on the bed. Tan Bin felt both wronged and sad, but most of what her mother-in-law said was true. She really didn't like County Kwan Thon, and she really did like handsome men, but that was in the past. She didn't blame Auntie Sao for saying these things. Auntie Sao was a traditional rural woman and was easily instigated by others. But it was precisely because of Auntie Sao's weakness that Thon Bin was able to act so recklessly in the county family in her past life. Auntie Sao had tolerated her in everything, especially when County Kwan Thon left her all his subsidies in his will. Auntie Sao didn't make a fuss. In fact, Auntie Sao had the right to make a fuss. Just because of the comfortable life she lived in her husband's family in her previous life, she would not blame her mother-in-law for saying these things today. Moreover, living together requires time and mutual understanding. Over time, her mother-in-law would easily understand. The prerequisite was that this life could still continue, which meant, what on earth was County Kwan Thon thinking? As she was deep in thought, the room door suddenly opened. He actually came into her room. She thought he would go sleep with Chi Vian, but was he here to interrogate her? Or was he here to talk about divorce? No matter what, she couldn't stand this false accusation. Ko Kwan Thon, just like the night before, came into the room and spread a mat on the floor to sleep. Thon Bin, full of grievances, sat up and asked in the dark, "You don't believe me?" The person lying on the floor was silent. What does silence mean? Tears almost welled up in Thon Bin's eyes. She tried to hold them back, jumped off the bed, turned on the light, and went in front of him. "Tell me!" "You don't believe me, do you?" She didn't know when her eyes had turned red, and her voice was choked up. Ko Kwan Thon's eyes were as dark and deep as the night sky. She couldn't see what was inside. Thonbin, regardless of everything, grabbed the hem of his shirt, pulled it open, and took off her shirt. A button flew off and hit his face, causing him to blink. Under the light, she had exposed everything. Her eyes were teary and full of grievances. "Look, County Kwanthon, I really do have a mole. Do you think I really had a thing with someone else?" He finally lost his composure, quickly looked away, pulled his blanket, and covered her. His voice was urgent and firm. "Don't make a scene anymore. Go to sleep. I'm not sleeping." Ko Kwanthon covered her with the blanket like that, and she was wrapped up in the blanket with him. The two of them were stuck together. By the time Ko Kwanthon realized this, it was too late. Thonbin took advantage of the situation, soft and hot, and wrapped herself around him. She put her mouth close to his ear, her voice sweet and soft with a hint of a sob. "I can prove that Kauthin and I are innocent. I'm innocent with anyone. Ko Kwanthon, you come and prove it." As she spoke, her lips moved, touching his ear little by little. Her breath was on his ear. His whole body tensed up in a state of high defense. "Lam Thonbin, be good." His whole body stiffened, and he scolded in a low voice. Thonbin didn't say anything. She just reached out and hugged his waist. Even through his shirt, she could feel the muscles on his waist tense up immediately. Her hands were held tightly by him. He looked at her, his eyes like the night sky with a fire dancing inside. He gritted his teeth. "Lam Thonbin, don't court disaster." Her face was only the size of a palm. Her black hair fell down. She looked up at him provocatively. Her eyes were shimmering with tears. 2 glistening teardrops looked like they were about to fall. "What do you want me to do? How do I prove it? Mom doesn't believe me anymore, and you don't believe me either. What should I do? I can only use my own way to prove it, of course." She cried as she spoke, feeling so wrong that the tip of her nose was red. Her eyebrows and cheeks were rosy like a peach blossom, battered by wind and rain, so fragile that they seemed about to break. Ko Kwanthon almost burst out laughing. He put on a serious face. "Lam Thonbin, I didn't expect this. You were so heroic and eloquent in the daytime, but now you're whining like this." Thonbin didn't expect that he had heard her conversation with Auntie Moy in the daytime. She blinked, and tears fell down like pearls. "Then that's just the kind of person I am. Do you believe me like that?" Whether he believed her or not, Thonbin didn't care anymore. She hugged his neck tightly and didn't let go. She put her mouth close to his ear and whispered softly so only he could hear, "County Kwanthon, tomorrow I'll go all over the village and say you can't do it. You're not a man. Lam Thonbin." She finally angered him. He yelled and looked straight at her. Thonbin had just said one word when she was blocked by a soft, rough thing. He looked very angry. She felt like she was about to be crushed by him. Her breath was full of his scent, and soon her mind was also full of him. Just when she felt dizzy and couldn't take it anymore, and clenched his hair, he suddenly let go and lay back down, panting. Thonbin's head was still buzzing, and her body was still a little dazed. "Go to sleep," he whispered, and turned off the light. Thonbin only felt her lips go numb. The place where his beard had touched her was still warm. After a long time, a soft voice came from the darkness. "I believe you." She was surprised and turned around, but he didn't say another word. She smiled slightly, hugged County Kwanthon's arm, and fell asleep, thinking to herself, "It was so hard to think of all the painful things from my past life, to squeeze out these few tears." It finally paid off. She didn't know when it started raining heavily. The summer rain poured down, but it didn't disturb Thonbin's sleep at all. When she woke up the next morning, as expected, Thonbin was lying on the bed. The mat on the floor had been rolled up. Thonbin held the blanket, feeling a little embarrassed. It was clear that she wanted to wake up early, but she felt that this was really not her fault. In fact, since she was reborn, she had often slept poorly, always having nightmares. She dreamed of her nephew's fierce face, of the suffocating feeling of being close to death. The most recurring dream was receiving the telegram from the army announcing his sacrifice. She would hold the telegram and cry until her heart ached. Every time she woke up in the middle of the night, the heart-wrenching pain from the dream still lingered in her chest. It was very difficult to fall back asleep. But these 2 nights, even though he was clearly sleeping on the floor, she slept so well. Suddenly, she heard County Kwanthon talking outside. It seemed he was making Chi Vian stand facing the wall again. She quickly got up and got ready. She saw County Kwanthon come out of Chi Vian's room. When he saw her, County Kwanthon coughed twice and looked away. What is this person thinking? "Chi Vian, what's wrong?" Ko Kwanthon finally returned to normal. That boy learned how to run away from home. I caught him at the entrance of the village. Tan Bin suddenly remembered what Chi Vian had said yesterday. He said he would leave, and he really did. She still took the cup of milk into Chi Vian's room. Chi Vian's small body was standing at attention very correctly, his back straight. Hearing someone come in, he didn't turn his head. Chi Vian, she called him. You haven't had your milk yet, have you? Chi Vian tilted his head, slightly ignoring her. The ice between her and Chi Vian had not yet melted. Since she came to be the daughter-in-law, she had always ignored Chi Vian. Chi Vian didn't like her, but Chi Vian was very clear about one thing. He knew she was Uncle Than's wife and a family member, so if anyone spoke ill of her, he had to stand up for her no matter what. That was saving face for Uncle Than. Looking at this pitiful child, Tan Bin felt very sorry for him. Here, have some milk first. Just like last time, she brought the cup of milk to his mouth. This time, he didn't drink. He lowered his head to avoid it. What's wrong? Can you tell Mom? She asked patiently. Mom heard Uncle Than say you wanted to leave. The word leave finally made him move, but he only lowered his head even more. After Uncle Than goes back to the army, I'll go. Why do you want to go? Go where? She asked in surprise. Chi Vian was silent again. Tan Bin thought for a moment and put the cup of milk down. What if Mom says, I won't let you go? Hearing this, Chi Vian looked up. Tan Bin found that his eyes were indeed red again. Mom won't let you go. Chi Vian, she repeated it again. Then will Mom give me eggs? Give me milk powder? The boy stammered. What does that have to do with you leaving? She also didn't understand. Chi Vian lowered his head. In Tongue and the storybook, it's all like that. After you feed and water someone and give them a little gift, you send the guest away. Dang Bin, so that's what the misunderstanding was. The sensitive and smart child really thought too much. Mom. Tan Bin hugged the stammering Chi Vian. Chi Vian? Mom didn't mean that. You misunderstood. From now on, you'll have eggs to eat and milk to drink every day. Mom will make them for you right here at this house. I only hope you eat well and grow big and strong like Uncle Than. Chi Vian didn't say anything, but Tan Bin felt the spot on her thin summer shirt where Chi Vian's eyes were pressed against was wet. Chi Vian, thank you for calling me Mom. In this life, let's start over. Tan Bin didn't make Chi Vian stand facing the wall anymore. She watched him drink the milk and then boiled an egg for him, and then she began to prepare the meal. In her past life, she was in the food and beverage industry, and her cooking skills were not bad. It was just that during her time at the county family's house, she was known for being lazy and never doing any work. She never shared her good food with anyone either. But today, she had entered the kitchen. Her mother-in-law looked as if the sun had risen in the west. Dan is here. He works so hard to come home. You should make him something to eat. Tan Bin explained. Mom, you go and do something else. I'll do it. Although this daughter-in-law usually acted like a tyrant, she had a good heart for her son. Auntie Sao felt somewhat comforted and gave the kitchen to her. In this era in the countryside, resources were truly scarce. Cooking oil and sugar were treated like gold by her mother-in-law, and she didn't dare to waste them. Tan Bin only used the available ingredients to make a meal. She steamed a pumpkin, mashed it, and mixed it with cornmeal to make a basin of pumpkin cakes. She didn't want to use too much oil to fry them, only a little, but they were very delicious. The pumpkins grown in the countryside were naturally sweet. The finished product had a perfect sweetness that everyone would love, just like a popular dessert decades later. Then she grilled the tofu directly and sprinkled it with chili powder and salt. Although it didn't have the explosive flavor of stuffed tofu, it was much tastier than her mother-in-law's fried tofu, which was often burnt. She also stir-fried the cowpea and green chili until they were burnt and then mixed them together. It smelled so good that her mother-in-law thought she had set the kitchen on fire. She stir-fried another large plate of cabbage. The meal was complete. When she put it on the table, Chi Vian's eyes lit up as he stared at the pumpkin cakes. Her mother-in-law was also very surprised. Tan Bin gave Chi Vian 2 pumpkin cakes and said to her mother-in-law, Mom, you eat first. I'll go call Dad and Brother Than to come eat. She thought County Quan Than was helping her father-in-law work, but when she went to the fields, she only saw her father-in-law there. After calling her father-in-law, she continued to look for County Quan Than. She looked all over the village, but couldn't find him. Then she saw everyone running towards the back of the mountain. Hurry! There's a landslide behind the mountain. I heard someone was injured. The villagers were very enthusiastic and all ran up the mountain. In her heart, Tan Bin's heart sank. Could it be that County Quan Than was also on the mountain? She had looked everywhere and couldn't find him. So she followed the villagers up the mountain quickly arriving at the site of the landslide. From below, Bin saw County Kwanthon hanging precariously from a tree. One hand was gripping a branch, and the other was pulling a person, Tranha. The entire valley could only hear Tranha's crying. "Brother Thon! Brother Thon! Don't let go, I'm scared!" Bin's heart felt like it was hanging precariously with Ko Kwanthon. The tree he was holding onto was shaking and about to fall. The two of them weren't very high off the ground. As long as County Kwanthon let go and jumped, neither of them would die. But it was hard to say if they would break an arm or a leg. The most important thing was that County Kwanthon died young in her past life, and a shadow had been cast over Bin's heart. She couldn't stand him being in any danger. She didn't even dare to call out, afraid of startling County Kwanthon and causing him to slip and fall. The villagers at the foot of the cliff had already spread a net and were yelling at the people above. "Thon, come down, we'll catch you. I'm letting go, hold on tight," Ko Kwanthon yelled back. After that, County Kwanthon let go, and the two of them fell into the net. Seeing County Kwanthon land safely in the net, Bin breathed a sigh of relief. But what were the two people in the net doing? She saw Tranha clinging tightly to County Kwanthon's neck, sobbing. "Wah, Brother Thon, thank you. Wah, Brother Thon, I was so scared." Bin noticed that Tranha was wearing a green shirt. She suddenly remembered the figure that had flashed behind the tree that day. Her feminine intuition's alarm bells started ringing in her head. Tranha was the person who had broken off her engagement with Ko Kwanthon because she disliked Chi Vien. But hadn't Tranha already gotten engaged to a young man from the city who had come to the countryside for training? That was before she and Ko Kwanthon got married. So why was she here now? She could only blame herself for being too apathetic towards the county family and Ko Kwanthon in her past life, to the point where she didn't even care about Tranha. The villagers went forward to help County Kwanthon and Tranha out of the net. Tranha finally couldn't continue clinging to County Kwanthon's neck, but she grabbed his hand. "Oh, Brother Thon, your hand is bleeding. What should I do? It's all my fault for hurting you." Bin stood at the back of the crowd, her eyes piercing through everyone to stare at the two of them. Ko Kwanthon was a perceptive person and had already noticed her presence. He immediately pulled his hand back, his tone nonchalant. "It's nothing. It's just a small scratch." The villagers saw that the people had been rescued and dispersed to their own work. It was the busy season, after all. On the mountain, only 3 people were left: County Kwanthon, Bin, and Tranha. At this moment, Tranha finally saw Bin standing next to County Kwanthon. She called out, "Sister-in-law," a look of surprise on her face. "You came too?" Bin didn't know if Tranha's surprise was real or fake. She smiled and looked at County Kwanthon. "Mom didn't tell me we had a little sister. How come I don't know her?" Ko Kwanthon was about to say something, but Tranha quickly smiled and said, "Brother Thon and I have been friends since we were little. Today, it was all my fault. I shouldn't have asked Brother Thon to come up here to reminisce. As a result, we encountered a landslide and he got hurt. I'm so sorry, sister-in-law." Tisk, tisk, tisk. Bin shook her head inwardly. This is a good show. Bin smiled, took County Kwanthon's arm, and said, "Brother Thon, the meal at home is ready. Mom told me to come up and call you home to eat. Do you want your friend to come with us?" Tranha's eyes rested on Bin's arm wrapped around County Kwanthon's. In the countryside in this era, couples didn't openly show affection like this. Tranha's eyes darkened, and she forced a smile. No need. I have something to do." "Oh, then we'll be going first." "Goodbye," Bin said, taking County Kwanthon's arm and walking down the mountain. She occasionally looked up at him. When she saw a dry blade of grass stuck in his sideburns, she smiled and reached out to brush it off. Tranha stood behind them, watching Bin smile like a flower, her eyes growing even more gloomy. Bin knew County Kwanthon was looking at her, ever since they were on the mountain, ever since her arm wrapped around his. But Bin pretended not to know. When they got home, she found the ointment County Kwanthon had for his hands. She sat in front of him and ordered him to hold out his hand. The reason she had to use a command was because a tough man like County Kwanthon would not pay attention to a small scratch on the back of his hand. This was completely different from how they would normally act. Bin put on a serious face. "I don't care how you train in the army. In the army, your soldiers listen to you. At home, you have to listen to me." Ko Kwanthon finally reluctantly held out his hand to her. She didn't care about his reluctance and carefully applied the ointment to the back of his hand, blowing on it as she did. Ko Kwan Thon looked at her serious, bowed head, a little speechless. Thon Bin didn't care what he was thinking. After she was done and satisfied, she let him go eat. He was eating the meal she made today. After Chi Vian finished eating, he still sat by the table, reluctant to leave. When the two of them went out, Auntie Sao was still saying to Chi Vian, "If you like it, eat more. Why did you run away?" Thon Bin knew Chi Vian liked the pumpkin cakes. He was just a child living in someone else's house and had always been disliked by her before, so it was inevitable that he would be sensitive and wouldn't change in an instant. She saved 2 pumpkin cakes for Chi Vian to eat later. Speaking of which, in her past life, Chi Vian loved sweets. Such a stubborn and powerful man with a gangster-like aura actually liked sweets. Ko Kwan Thon looked at the food on the table, a little dazed. If it were her, she would also be dazed. After all, since she came to the county family, no one in the county village had ever seen her work. Ko Kwan Thon always ate quickly. She sat across from him. He had already finished a bowl of rice before she had even finished a pumpkin cake. "Is it good?" she asked him with a sweet and slightly coquettish voice. Ko Kwan Thon was about to eat his second bowl when he stopped his chopsticks, ate a bite, and then said, "She called me to help with the farming. Her brother's leg is hurt." Thon Bin bit the pumpkin cake, nodded, and smiled, her eyes crescent-shaped. So was he answering whether the meal was good or explaining what happened on the mountain? She obviously referred to Tran Ha. That was just the way he was, quiet. He didn't say what was on his mind. It was the same in her past life. She didn't know what he was thinking, only that he would regularly send money and good things he bought in the city to her. His reputation in the village was very high. The branch secretary believed he was a knowledgeable person from the military and would consult him on everything. As soon as he finished eating, he was invited to the branch secretary's house again. He was busy all afternoon. In the evening, the branch secretary kept County Kwan Thon for dinner and sent someone to invite Thon Bin to join them. Thon Bin happily agreed. She went there happily. As a result, as soon as she entered the door, Tran Ha came in. Tran Ha smiled like a flower, carrying a piece of meat. "Uncle Secretary, my brother's leg is hurt. These past few days we've had to rely on your family to help us with the farm work. Otherwise, I don't know what we would have done. My brother told me to come and thank you." After that, she pretended to be surprised. "Oh, Brother Thon and sister-in-law are here too?" The branch secretary laughed. "That's right. I'm keeping Thon and his wife for dinner. You should eat with us too." This, Tran Ha looked at County Kwan Thon and Thon Bin. "Then that's great. It's been a long time since I've seen Brother Thon. Sister-in-law, do you mind?" Thon Bin smiled brightly on the outside, but scoffed on the inside. The branch secretary's family was inviting them for dinner. Would she be so impolite as to say she minded and not come? Besides, even if she said she minded, wouldn't Tran Ha just sit down anyway? The dishes were placed on the table. The branch secretary brought out a pot of his own brewed wine. In this era, wine was a luxury. How could villagers afford to buy wine? They all brewed their own wine. Moreover, even when they brewed wine, they couldn't use precious grains like rice. They just used various wild fruits from the mountain, such as wild plums, wild grapes, wild thorns, etc., and brewed them. The Ko village was backed by a mountain, so almost every family did this. The branch secretary enthusiastically filled County Kwan Thon's cup with wine, but County Kwan Thon said he didn't drink alcohol and had to go back to the army tomorrow. A hand immediately reached out and took the cup in front of Ko Kwan Thon. "Brother Thon is a disciplined person and can't drink alcohol. I'll drink this cup for him, okay, Tran Ha?" Thon Bin felt that this person was very interesting. Tran Ha looked at Thon Bin with an innocent and naive expression. "Sister-in-law, Brother Thon and I are like siblings. I'll drink it for him." Thon Bin, how interesting. Is there already a green tea white lotus in this era? Thon Bin smiled, took another cup, placed it in front of her, and filled it with wine. Before anyone knew what she was going to do, she tilted her head back and emptied the cup. Ko Kwan Thon next to her snatched her cup and whispered, "What are you doing?" Thon Bin smiled. "Uncle Secretary, I have to use my youth as an excuse. Don't blame me for saying you're wrong." The branch secretary was stunned. "What am I wrong about? I don't see it." "Tran Ha wanted to drink, but what about you? Do you look down on women? Why didn't you pour her a drink? She even had to fight for my brother Thon's wine to drink. Tell me, are you not a thoughtful host?" Thon Bin was indeed young at this time, and this joke made the branch secretary laugh heartily. Right. I wasn't thoughtful. Here, fill it up. The branch secretary laughed and filled Tran-Ha's cup, then looked at Tan-min. Then what about you, Than's wife? You just said not to look down on women, but Than took your cup. So should I fill this cup? Tan-bin smiled. My brother Than's wine? I'll drink it. What are you joking about? You're not drinking anymore. Ko Kwan Than covered the cup with his hand and apologized to the branch secretary. She really can't drink anymore. The branch secretary, of course, didn't force her. But Tran-Ha, holding that cup of wine, couldn't drink it and couldn't not drink it. It was awkward. However, there were not only the few of them at the table, there were also a few other cadres from the village. The branch secretary was very skillful at inviting Tran-Ha to chat, and it was also very lively. The people eating with them were all people from the village they knew, either growing up with Ko Kwan Than or watching him grow up. While eating, they talked, and they began to reminisce about the past. The person who talked the most was Tran-Ha. I remember when we were little, we went to Uncle Secretary's house to steal persimmons and got caught by his wife. She was gonna spank us. That's not right. Only you were a scaredy cat, a young man chimed in. She continued. Only Brother Than was the best. He said he would take the spanking for me. The rest of you just ran away. Tran-Ha gave the young man a reproachful look. The young man smiled at County Kwan Than. The young man then laughed. You and Than were just naive. His wife was just joking. She wasn't actually gonna spank us. This sentence made County Kwan Than also laugh. Ko Kwan Than, who was originally quiet, finally talked more in this nostalgic atmosphere. On the other hand, Than Bin didn't say anything. She had not participated in County Kwan Than's childhood and youth. She couldn't interject. She didn't even understand what they were saying, especially when Tran-Ha kept intentionally or unintentionally talking about how County Kwan Than, as the older brother, had protected her when they were little. Although she told herself that she was a reborn person and had a stable mentality and that this was not County Kwan Than's fault, there was still a hint of regret that crept into her heart, a vague sourness. When Tran-Ha told a story about them swimming in the river together when they were little, the wine in Tan Bin's cup was filled again. She drank one cup after another. Ko Kwan Than must be busy chatting with his friends and not paying attention to me anymore, right? She didn't know when their conversation finally became inaudible and there was only a buzzing sound. That's great. Finally, I don't have to listen to those annoying noises. It was just that everything in front of her also began to sway. She rubbed her eyes, her head spinning. She couldn't help but grab County Kwan Than's arm to steady herself. Finally, without hesitation, she leaned on his shoulder. County Kwan Than, I want to go home, she mumbled, a sourness in her heart and a sting in her eyes. Her voice, as if mixed with the alcohol, was both coquettish and soft. Then, there seemed to be a loud laugh, an arm wrapped around her waist. She was dizzy and tried to open her eyes but only saw a lot of blurry figures. Were they all County Kwan Than's friends? They all seemed to be laughing. Were they laughing at her? Kwan Than, she called him, full of resentment. Why did you talk to your friends and not pay attention to me? Your friends are laughing at me too. After that, she felt her whole body lift into the air. Her face was pressed against a firm and warm place. She looked up and only saw County Kwan Than's eyes, as dark as the night sky, reflecting a glittering light like the Milky Way. She was dizzy and tried to reach out and touch his eyes, giggling foolishly. Kwan Than, in your eyes, there's... Another round of laughter erupted. HMPH, why are you laughing at me? But amidst the chaotic sounds, she clearly heard County Kwan Than's voice, only she couldn't make out what he was saying. After that, she was far away from those noises, feeling the night wind blow. As the cool breeze passed, her face felt hot. Kwan Than, am I drunk? She was still a little sober. I told you not to drink, but you secretly drank. I wanted to see how much you could drink. Was the hero County Kwan Than saying that? She looked up and saw that he seemed to be smiling. Was he laughing at her too? Don't laugh at me, she grumbled resentfully and buried her face in his chest. The distance from the branch secretary's house to the county family's house was not far. Ko Kwan Than also walked fast, and in a short while, they were there. He said something to someone, she's drunk, and then carried her straight into the room and placed her on the bed. Tan Bin felt very uncomfortable again. She was hot and sticky. She sat up from the bed and wanted to take a bath. She stumbled out on her own. Ko Kwan Than helped her. You're like this and you still want to take a bath? I don't want to. It's uncomfortable. She pushed him away and continued to walk towards the bathroom, stumbling in an S shape. In the end, it was still County Kwan Thon who helped her get to the bathroom. She even wanted to carry the hot water herself. Ko Kwan Thon looked at her and was scared, telling her to stand still and not move. How could a drunk person like her be obedient? She kept wanting to do it herself. Ko Kwan Thon had no other choice. Out of habit, he commanded, "Stand still! At attention!" He was originally a person with a clear voice who was used to giving commands in the army, so his voice was very loud. His command was even more like a thunderclap. Even though Thanbin was drunk, she was startled. She really stood still without moving and lowered her head. Ko Kwan Thon prepared the hot water to a suitable temperature and then called her. Seeing her standing obediently with her head bowed, not moving, he thought. She was just making a fuss. Why is she suddenly so quiet now? He walked over and said to her, "Okay, you can take a bath now." He saw her shoulders trembling. Ko Kwan Thon bent down to look. "Oh my, she's sobbing!" Ko Kwan Thon was stunned. What is this? Why is she crying? Is she that uncomfortable? Did she drink too much and now she has a headache and stomachache? Thanbin looked at him with red eyes. Her eyes were wet from the alcohol and her eyes and eyebrows were flushed like a rain-soaked peach blossom. She also said in a soft voice, "You scolded me again." "County Kwan Thon, when did I scold you?" "I did? That was just talking a little loudly." County Kwan Thon hadn't finished explaining when Thanbin stopped listening. With red eyes, she stumbled towards the tub. Ko Kwan Thon quickly went to help her. Before he could even touch her, she started taking off her clothes. Ko Kwan Thon quickly recoiled his hands. As a result, she lost her balance. As soon as she took off her shirt, she fell to the ground. Ko Kwan Thon immediately went forward and hugged her. He felt the softness but didn't dare to lower his head. He looked up at the ceiling. "You want to take a bath? Can we do it properly?" Okay, she was very obedient again. Seeing that she couldn't bathe herself, County Kwan Thon gritted his teeth. Since she's going to cause a fuss like this, I might as well get it over with. He quickly and skillfully took off her clothes and placed her in the tub. He closed his eyes, intending to quickly finish giving her a bath. But how could he finish bathing her when she kept squirming like this? She kept wiggling in the tub, and he couldn't hold her still. His mind was full of images of a peeled egg. When he opened his eyes, all he saw was her. When he closed his eyes, all he felt was her under his fingertips. And she was even singing and playing with the water, splashing water on him. She also said, "This tub is not comfortable. I need a real bathtub. It would be best if there was a shower head too." "What's a bathtub? What's a shower head?" She sat up straight and used her fingers to draw in the air for him to see. Her slender white fingers had water droplets on them, and under the flickering oil lamp, they were even brighter than the lamp. After she finished drawing the bathtub and shower head, she went limp again and fell into him. Her arms wrapped around his neck, and she called his name. "County Kwan Thon, County Kwan Thon." She called him many times. He didn't answer. She kept calling. He had no choice but to ask, "What?" She suddenly leaned in close and smiled at him. A faint scent of fruit wafted onto his face. "County Kwan Thon, tell me, am I beautiful? Am I beautiful, County Kwan Thon?" Ko Kwan Thon just closed his eyes and bathed her, not answering her. Suddenly, his lips felt hot. He opened his eyes. Her face was pressed against his. "Just give up. No more bathing." He wrapped her in a large cotton cloth and carried her back to the room, ignoring her still singing on his shoulder. After this bath, he was also soaked and had to take another bath. As for Thanbin, this time she was finally obedient. After being placed on the bed, she mumbled and then fell asleep, sleeping soundly until the next morning. She didn't know what intuition it was, but she suddenly woke up and sat up. The sky was already bright. She was alone in the room. He's gone. Ko Kwan Thon had to leave today. Did he just leave like that? She quickly put on her clothes and got out of bed, running outside. Sure enough, County Kwan Thon's figure was nowhere to be seen in the yard. Chi Vien was holding a broom almost as big as himself and was sweeping the yard. "Chi Vien, where's your Uncle Thon?" she asked anxiously. Chi Vien looked at her in surprise. "He went back to the army. He just left." It was as if he was saying, "Don't you know?" Thanbin ran away. She took a shortcut to chase after him, hoping she could catch up. In her past life, he also left early in the morning. Not only did she not see him off, but she also got angry with him the night before because of something about her parents' house. She wanted to buy a bicycle, and he had agreed, but by the time he went back to the army, he still hadn't gotten the bicycle purchase certificate. She remembered saying very hurtful things like, "How useless are you? I would have been better off marrying anyone else." Something like that. After that, he left early in the morning like that. The next week, someone brought the bicycle purchase certificate and even the money for the bicycle to her. This happened decades ago, separated by life and death. Now that she thought about it, she still wanted to slap herself. She didn't know how wronged he must have felt in his heart when she scolded him like that. But luckily, everything had started over. Everything was still in time. She chased him from the mountain and finally saw him wearing a dark blue short-sleeve shirt. He was walking on the road out of the village. "Kwantan! Ko Kwantan!" she called out loudly. He heard her and turned to look in the direction of the voice. She waved at him and ran like the wind down the mountain. She heard him say something, but there was only the sound of the wind in her ears, and she couldn't hear him clearly. She just kept running down the mountain. He also ran up the mountain. The two of them met on the narrow mountain road. They were about to collide, but she didn't stop and just ran into him. The two of them hugged each other. Ko Kwan Than was well trained, so Than Bin didn't get hurt. She just hugged him tightly. "County Kwan Than, County Kwan Than." Than Bin hugged him and instructed him very seriously. "County Kwan Than, you have to be careful and pay attention to your safety." She chased him just to say this sentence. In her past life, as his wife, she had never said this sentence. In this life, she couldn't forget it anymore. She only hoped that County Kwan Than would be safe and sound. After she finished speaking, she let go of him. "You go quickly. You have to be on time. Don't be late." He felt a little unbelievable. "You chased me just to say this to me?" Yes. To her, this was a very important matter. Ko Kwan Than was stunned and nodded. "Okay, I'm going. You go home quickly." Than Bin waved at him. "Go, go." Than Bin watched him until his figure was just a tiny dot before slowly turning back home. At the entrance of the village, she met Tran Ha again. Tran Ha actively called out to her and smiled. "Did you come to see Than off?" Than Bin didn't want to pay attention to her and walked straight home. Tran Ha kept following her. "I also just saw Than off." Than Bin was really annoyed with her. She saw him off, so what? She didn't want to pay any attention to this person at all, but she deliberately came in front of her to show off. Wasn't she just trying to provoke her? She turned back and said impolitely, "You are so strange. You have a husband. Why don't you worry about keeping your own husband and instead constantly cling to someone else's husband?" Tran Ha's face turned pale. It must have hit a sore spot for Tran Ha. Than Bin turned her head and walked away. Tran Ha said something behind her like, "Brother Than and I grew up together like siblings," or something like that. She was too lazy to listen anymore. She walked all the way back to the county family's house and found a pile of wood shavings in the yard. There was no one here yesterday. "Who made so many wooden things so early in the morning?" Than Bin asked Chi Vian in surprise. Chi Vian looked at her confused. "Uncle Than made them. Didn't Mom tell him to?" "Than Bin, what did you tell him to make?" Chi Vian led her to the bathroom to see. The bathroom door had been fixed. She thought that was it, but when Chi Vian pushed the door open, she was stunned. Why was there something like a shower head in the bathroom? It definitely couldn't be compared to the shower heads of the future. The principle was similar to a boiler. There was a high shelf on the wall with a water tank on it. A small boiler heated the water in the tank and then connected to a water pipe. It was a simple shower. And this too. Chi Vian led her to see a large wooden tub that was drying in the sun in the yard. Uncle Than said that when it's dry, you can take a bath in it. A bathtub? Than Bin stood frozen in place. "These things are..." She grabbed Chi Vian and asked. Chi Vian looked at her a little strangely. "Didn't Mom tell Uncle Than to make them?" "Mom?" Than Bin couldn't remember anything at all. "Yes." Chi Vian tilted his head. "Yesterday you were drunk and asked Uncle Than to make these things. Uncle Than stayed up all night to make them for you." Than Bin was stunned again. He stayed up all night to finish these things, just because of a casual remark she made while drunk? He was really like that, in her past life and in this life. He didn't say anything, but just silently did everything. In her past life, it was the bicycle. In this life, it was these things. No one could guess what he was thinking. Why was he so good to her? He had never said he liked her, let alone the word love. He only had one sentence. "I'm sorry." And another, "I'm so sorry." So, was all he had for her? "I'm sorry, and I'm so sorry." So what had happened between him and Tran Ha? She was reborn, and many things had changed. For example, in her past life, Tran-ha hardly ever caught her attention. In this life, she kept appearing in front of her. So, was the reason County Kwantan came home and didn't touch her and even mentioned divorce as soon as he got home because of Tran-ha? She didn't know and couldn't guess. No, that's not right. She quickly figured it out. She had already said it. She came back in this life to repay him and to live a good life with Ko Kwantan. So she should just live a good life. As for love or not loving, she was a 70-year-old person who had come back. What was there that she couldn't see through? Moreover, she herself didn't know what love felt like. She had lived to be 70 years old in her past life and had never truly loved anyone. Before she married County Kwantan in her past life, she had an ideal type in her heart, but it wasn't anyone specific. Being husband and wife with Ko Kwantan for a few years was more like being enemies. And in the decades after that, it wasn't that she didn't meet any men, but no one truly loved her as a person. The miserable days of her past life were over. In this new life, everything had just begun. What was there to just thinking nonsense? Her heart suddenly felt at ease. She would live just as she had said before. She didn't know if she could overcome the obstacle of her sacrifice or not, but first, she would live these years well with him. She was there to repay him. She turned around and saw that Chi Vian was still looking at her. "What did Mommy do yesterday?" she asked casually. Mommy was also singing. "Tan Ben, and you also asked Uncle Than if Mommy was beautiful?" Chi Vian was very honest. No matter what Tan Ben asked him, he would answer clearly. "Okay, stop talking." Tan Ben was truly embarrassed to death. Did she do something more outrageous? "Sister!" Chi Vian thought he had said something wrong and lowered his head. Mommy was shouting very loudly. "I wasn't peeking." Tan Ben was even more ashamed. What does shouted very loudly mean? Seeing Chi Vian's timid appearance, Tan Ben's heart softened again. Are you going to pick wild vegetables?" Chi Vian carefully lifted the basket and intended to leave. Tan Ben held his basket. Chi Vian was even more scared. "It's okay, Chi Vian. Mommy's not angry," Tan Ben said softly. "Don't go pick any more wild vegetables. Come home with Mommy." She intended to teach Chi Vian. Chi Vian was very smart. In this life, she had to make sure that Chi Vian received a proper education. In this era, not many people in the county village valued education. She had been reborn, and no one understood the importance of education more than she did. But she really didn't expect that Chi Vian was truly intelligent, and this intelligence exceeded her expectations. She had experience teaching children. In her past life, she didn't have her own children. She treated her younger brother's son, her nephew, as her own. She had also tutored her nephew. She followed her memories from her past life and taught Chi Vian the elementary school curriculum. After finishing the first day's lesson, she gave Chi Vian homework, telling him to write 1 page of each pinyin number and vowel they had learned today. After giving him the homework, she took care of other things. A little while later, she saw Chi Vian playing with a wooden gun. She checked his homework. Oh my goodness! He actually wrote 1 page for each character, but there was only 1 character on each page. A huge character that took up the whole page. Chi Vian seemed to know he had done something wrong and lowered his head without a word. "Chi Vian, tell me, was this intentional?" "This is blatant laziness," Tan Ben said, pointing to the homework. Chi Vian lowered his head even more and then stood facing the wall on his own. This was a habit deeply ingrained in him. When he made a mistake, he would go and stand facing the wall. After he was done standing, he still had to come back and rewrite it for Mommy. Tan Ben had no intention of being lenient with him regarding his studies. While he was standing facing the wall, Tan Ben didn't watch him. She took care of her own things, going to the garden to pick vegetables for dinner. In fact, she really liked cooking, mainly because she liked to eat good food. If not, she wouldn't have opened a restaurant. It was just that before, at the county family's house, she had been intentionally lazy. When she returned with spicy peppers and vegetables from the garden, she saw that there were extra people in the house. Her mother and younger brother had come. When she entered, her younger brother was holding a cup of milk and drinking it. That was the milk she had made for Chi Vian before she went to the garden, intending to let it cool before giving it to him. On the table in front of her mother and younger brother, a package of biscuits had been opened. Her younger brother was drinking milk and eating biscuit crumbs that were scattered all over the floor. And what was her mother doing? She was saying to Chi Vian, "Your father is gone, but don't you still have your mother? Why doesn't your mother come to pick you up? When is your mother going to come to pick you up? You eat the county family's food and wear the county family's clothes, but your family doesn't send money. Don't you have other relatives?" Why do you keep staying at someone else's house? As soon as Thanbin walked in the door, she heard this sentence. She immediately put on a serious face and said, "What are you saying to a child, Mom?" After saying that, she put away the package of biscuits, leaving only a few pieces on a plate for them to eat. Her mother complained, "Why are you putting it away? Aren't you going to take advantage of your in-laws not being home to let your brother eat a few pieces and take the rest with us? You're something else. Such good food, and you didn't even bring us anything the last time you came home. You just brought a fish. We have plenty of fish in the stream in the village. Do we still crave fish?" Thanbin's face was expressionless. The biscuits were bought by Brother Tan for Chi Vian to eat. What's wrong with this girl? Does she not understand anything? Her mother looked at her as if she were an idiot. Is this little bastard worthy of eating such good food? He's an outsider. What do you get out of him eating it? When he grows up, will he remember you? Hearing this, the fierce face of her nephew before she died appeared in front of her eyes again. Yes, an outsider. But when she was about to die, it was this outsider who remembered her. Oh, of course, the people she loved with all her heart also remembered her, but they only remembered her assets. She saw that Chi Vian had turned his face away when he heard the 4 words, "little bastard." Thanbin immediately snatched the cup of milk from her younger brother's hand and put away the biscuits from the table. Hey, what are you doing? Her mother was unhappy. Thanbin cleaned everything up and turned around with a serious face. The 4 words, "little bastard," I don't want to hear them again. He's the child whom Brother Thin treats as his own and raises. He is ours and Brother Thin's own child. Her mother forced a smile. It's not that I'm saying it. Don't the people in the surrounding villages say it? Are you going to go around and manage everyone's mouth? Thanbin smiled coldly. I really can't manage what others say, but people like that shouldn't even think about coming through my front door. If anyone dares to say it in front of me, I'll give them a slap. Her mother was angry. So, are you going to slap me today? For a little bastard, an outsider? You're going to slap me? Thanbin paused and told Chi Vian to go outside to play. After he was far away, she said, "Because you're my mother, I'll let it slide today. But if there's a next time, don't come back. A mother-daughter relationship like this isn't good." She didn't want the child to see it. Her mother was so angry she stood up to leave, but her younger brother pulled her shirt and held her back. Her mother finally sat down, sulking for a while. Fine. Who told me to be your mother? What kind of mother-daughter relationship has grudges that last overnight? Thanbin knew her mother wouldn't come for no reason. She wouldn't ask and would just wait. Her mother began to speak. It turned out that she had been instigated by someone and wanted her younger brother to join the army, saying how good it was, and wanting County Kwanthon to help him get in. She looked at her younger brother and said honestly, if her younger brother were an ambitious and capable person, she would also hope he had a future. But it was rare to see a spoiled country boy like him. From a young age, his mother had pampered him and his father had doted on him. She and her second younger sister had carried the whole family. Her younger brother didn't even know how to do farm work. During the busy season, he would get tired after a short while of harvesting rice and had to go sleep in the shade. Could he endure the hardships of the army? She could only say, "This path is also good. Go ahead." Than? Her mother was overjoyed. Don't mention Brother Than's name anywhere. Don't use Brother Than's name to ask for favors everywhere. If I find out, you can forget about ever coming through the county family's door again. Her mother's face changed. How can that be? Then doesn't mind. Wouldn't training there be difficult? When has my son ever suffered? Thanbin knew it would be like this. Her mother wanted him to join the army to enjoy a good life? Of course. Our family has a relationship with Than, so we don't have to suffer. Just arrange for him to be next to Than and make him a small officer. Is my mother dreaming? What are you thinking? Brother Than doesn't have that ability. He's just a regular soldier. Besides, no one gets in there without suffering. There's no precedent for that either. It's fair and equitable. There's no back door. This sentence angered her mother. Fine, I'll just consider that I wasted my effort raising you. Her mother stood up and pulled her younger brother to leave. Now that you've married into a good family, you don't care about your own family anymore. Don't forget, if it weren't for us helping you with this marriage, would you be where you are today? This marriage of yours, we can't reach. From now on, we won't come anymore. Seeing her mother's angry face, Thanbin was also very sad. This was her biological mother. Mom, tell my brother to study and get tutoring for 2 to 3 years. Try his hardest to pass the college entrance exam. Thanbin knew her younger brother's life path in this life. In the future, She would be the one to force County Kwantan to ask his friends to find a job for her younger brother in a factory. Her younger brother would laze around in the factory all day. After that, she would succeed in business, and her younger brother would quit his factory job and ask her for money to invest. He was basically a prodigal who lost money in everything he did. After that, she had no choice but to support her younger brother and even his children for the rest of her life. HMPH. If you're not going to help, then just say so. Don't pretend to be polite. You're so high and mighty now. Country people like us aren't worthy of you. From now on, we won't have anything to do with each other, okay? Her mother pulled her younger brother and left. Dambin sighed inside. This was her last piece of advice for her younger brother. Her younger brother couldn't do heavy work. The college entrance exam wasn't that difficult in these years. If he could succeed in his studies, he might be able to change his life. But she shook her head. No matter what, she had to pull her younger sister out of her miserable life. She calculated a little and decided to cook first and then go buy some things in the city. She didn't know how far her younger sister had gotten with her school supplies. She had to go see. When she went to the yard to get vegetables, she found that the basket of vegetables she had just picked from the garden had disappeared. She smiled bitterly. Her mother's greed really couldn't be changed in a few lifetimes. She cooked quickly. In her heart, she was gradually planning for the future. After the food was ready, she had a rough plan. In her past life, she had met many people. There were people she didn't want to see again, and there were people she still wanted to find. Thinking that Chi Vien had been bullied again today, she made the pumpkin cakes he liked while cooking. After she was done, she scooped up some rice and took it to the fields for her in-laws, then called Chi Vien to come eat. But after searching everywhere, she couldn't find Chi Vien. Remembering that Chi Vien had run away from home before, she panicked and called out for him all over the village. Luckily, a neighbor heard her and said, "Isn't Chi Vien lying face down in your yard? Why are you shouting outside?" Then Bin quickly returned. Sure enough, she found him behind an old tree in the yard. He was lying face down and writing characters. Then Bin approached quietly. He had already finished writing a page of numbers and was writing the second line of vowels on the last page. The handwriting was clumsy, but very diligent and crooked. She saw Chi Vien finish the last letter. Then she squatted down. She praised him for writing carefully and then squatted down to look into his bright eyes. "Chi Vien," her voice was gentle. "Chi Vien, will you help mommy from now on?" A look of surprise clearly appeared in Chi Vien's dark eyes. "Look, your Uncle Than is in the army and isn't home often. Grandpa is old and has to go to the fields every day. You're the youngest and strongest man in the house. Can you and mommy help Uncle Than take care of this house?" She was really scared by the fact that the child had run away from home. In her past life, he also ran away often. Sometimes he would be gone for days. What if he got angry and ran away again one day? She wanted him to know that this was his home too. This home needed him. A small child like him would have more responsibility and wouldn't run away anymore, right? Chi Vien tilted his head and thought for a long time. "If someone bullies mommy, I'll beat them up for you." Chi Vien, fighting isn't the best way to solve problems. Besides, mommy isn't afraid of being bullied. Mommy is also very powerful. Tham Bin was quite worried about Chi Vien's method of solving problems with violence. She had to teach him well in the future. "Then what are you afraid of, mommy?" Chi Vien didn't understand either. "I'm afraid of many things," Tham Bin frowned and thought. "For example, I'm afraid of the dark." Hearing this, Chi Vien frowned, his face full of confusion. Then Bin had to make something else up. "Mommy is also afraid of worms. Later, when we pick vegetables, can you help mommy catch the worms?" Although Chi Vien found the things she was afraid of a little difficult to understand, he still nodded his head in agreement. These things were all small. Thonbin smiled and reached out her hand to hook pinkies with him. "You have to help mommy always, always, okay?" "Okay." Chi Vien hooked pinkies with her without hesitation. Only then did Thonbin take him back to eat. He really liked sweets. When he saw the pumpkin cakes, his eyes lit up. Thonbin smiled and said, "If you do your homework well today, we'll go to the county town later, and when we come back tonight, mommy will make you something delicious." Hearing this, Chi Vien's eyes lit up again. After all, children like to eat. Thonbin had two purposes for going to the county town. One was to buy books and school supplies, and the other was to see if there was a way to make money. She wanted to start making money earlier than in her past life, and also wanted to see if she could meet the people she had met in her past life. After they finished eating, she took him and Chi Vien to go. The first stop was the general store. The clothes Chi was wearing were truly old and short. The pant legs were worn and torn, with 2 big patches, and the patches were torn again. When they walked into the general store, Bin noticed that the boy was not at all surprised by everything in the city, as if he was used to seeing it. Bin thought of his mother, who was never mentioned. Neither in her past life nor this life had she ever appeared. She didn't know what kind of person she was. She bought 2 sets of clothes and 2 pairs of shoes for Chi. After thinking for a moment, she went to the yarn counter and bought a few pounds of yarn. She was very good at knitting. Fall was approaching, and it was a good time to knit sweaters for everyone in the family. When she passed by the women's clothing counter, she saw a very beautiful red coat. She bought it immediately. This was for her younger sister. Just like that, her hands were full of things. After they bought books and school supplies, Chi also carried some small things. Bin felt a little regretful. There were really too few books for the college entrance exam compared to the pile of books and homework that students would later bury themselves in. But there was a huge gap. She carried her big and small bags to the last place, the state-run sugar factory. There was a very important person to her here, but she couldn't meet that person. They weren't home. There was nothing she could do. In this era, without phones, communication was really inconvenient and not timely. Besides, at this moment, they were still strangers. They would meet again if they were destined to in the future. Thank you for following Ace Manhwa's channel. I hope you enjoy the story. And note to the editor, I'm tired. I'm gonna play Mario Kart and finish this tomorrow. You won't notice it because this is a video, not real-time narration, LOL. She bought 2 bags of candy at the sugar factory store, bought a few steamed buns for Chi to eat on the way, and then guided him on the way home. By the time they got home, it was almost dark. Her mother-in-law was cooking, and her father-in-law was also home from work. Seeing her carrying big and small bags, the 2 of them didn't say anything. Bin washed her hands and also entered the kitchen to help cook. Chi followed her. The tiny child in the small kitchen would sometimes bump into Aunt Sao, and sometimes into Bin. Aunt Sao laughed and said, "It's so small in here. Why are you guys crowding in?" Bin laughed. This child was good for nothing else but to keep his promises. He hadn't changed since he was little. She gave him some vegetables. "Chi, will you help mommy pick the vegetables, okay?" Chi nodded and immediately took a small basin to wash the vegetables. Today, Bin specially made the 2-layered tofu dish she had promised Chi. She didn't expect that Chi, who liked sweets so much, would only eat 1 piece and stop. "What's wrong? Isn't it good?" Bin asked. Chi shook his head. "I want to save it to eat tomorrow." "It'll go bad tomorrow. If you like it, mommy will make you another one tomorrow." Hearing this, Chi finally ate every little piece. After dinner, Bin took out the things she had bought today. The 5 pounds of yarn were in dark colors for her in-laws to choose from. They could keep whatever color they wanted. Her in-laws looked at her as if they were looking at a monster. Bin coughed twice. "This is just me taking responsibility. Brother Than told me that it's autumn now, and I should buy you some changes of clothes. I think that in the countryside you have to do farm work, so you should still make your own outerwear. So I only bought 2 changes for Chi. In a month or 2, it will be cold, and I'll knit a sweater for each of you." The only advantage of her husband not being around was that she could blame him for anything. This explanation, while it was an explanation, clearly wasn't convincing enough, but her in-laws didn't say anything else and just randomly chose a color. "Okay, these 2 colors are for us, and this color is for Chi." The remaining yarn was enough to knit at least 1 more sweater. She put the yarn away. She didn't have anything else to do at night, so she could start knitting. The day passed busily. The next day, she still gave Chi 2 lessons. The time wasn't long, 20 minutes per lesson. She gave him homework, cooked, and of course, didn't forget to make the 2-layered tofu for Chi. Then she packed her things and went back to her parents' house, mainly for her younger sister. She went directly to the fields. Sure enough, just as she had expected, her younger sister was working in the fields, her slender body hunched under the scorching sun like a shrimp. Her younger sister walked over to her, calling out to her father. Her father saw her first. As soon as he saw her, his face darkened. It seemed that her mother had gone back and said a lot of bad things about her. She didn't care about her father's expression. She just pulled her younger sister aside and asked, "The school supplies I told you to get ready, how far along are you?" Her younger sister lowered her head and didn't say anything. Suddenly, Bin thought of something. "The money's gone, right?" Her younger sister lowered her head even more. Her face flushed. Tan Bin was certain the money had been taken by her mother. It's my fault for not thinking it through. She handed the package of things to her younger sister. Inside are a change of clothes and some review books and school supplies. Keep them and study on your own. She had intentionally bought red clothes, so her mother wouldn't take them for her younger brother to wear. Who would have thought that her younger sister would hug the small package and say in a low voice, "Sister, maybe I should just give up." Give up what? Give up on school? Tan Bin questioned. Being questioned like this, her younger sister didn't dare to say anything else and just lowered her head even more. Tan Bin knew that her younger sister's personality was a little weak. If not, she wouldn't have been so mistreated in her past life. Studying is useless anyway, her younger sister said timidly and softly. Tan Bin understood immediately. It was what her mother said. What's the use of a girl studying? She's going to get married anyway. Her younger sister was silent for a moment, as if silently admitting it. She also said, besides, how can I pass the exam? Tan Bin understood her younger sister's mindset perfectly right now. If she hadn't been reborn, and someone had told her she could pass the college entrance exam, she would have thought it was ridiculous too. What's the use of a girl studying? She's gonna get married anyway. It's enough to know how to read and write. Someone like you also wants to take the college entrance exam? Crying for a swan to eat meat when you have ringworm? The Ko village, or rather many rural areas, had this kind of thinking. Suddenly, her mother's loud voice called for her younger sister, and she hurried over. Seeing Tan Bin, "Oh, the person we can't reach. Why are you here? Be careful, the dirt might get on your feet," her mother said sarcastically, but it was clear that she was in a hurry. Without waiting for Tan Bin to argue with her, she pulled her younger sister and rushed back home, scolding her as she went. Why did you let yourself get like this? Go home and wash up and change your clothes quickly. How can you meet people looking like this? In the struggle, the package in her younger sister's hand came undone, revealing the red coat inside. Her mother snatched it. Did your sister buy this for you? Yes, this time your sister actually did something good. Go home and change immediately. Tan Bin saw that her mother was acting strange. She wasn't complaining that she had only bought things for her younger sister and not her younger brother. She also wanted her younger sister to dress up well. The signal was too obvious. She immediately followed her home. Sure enough, there was a person sitting there. It was Aunt Lo Tu from Lam Village, a famous matchmaker from Lam Village. In her past life, it was her who talked about how good the Ho family in another village was and coaxed her mother into agreeing to the marriage. Of course, the most important thing was the 500 yuan betrothal gift. 500 yuan was a huge sum of money in this era. Her mother also didn't think that any family would spend so much money to marry a girl from her impoverished Lam family. It was clearly a problem. Of course, whether it was a problem or not, it didn't matter. Her mother didn't care at all. She only cared about the 500 yuan. As soon as the three of them got home, her mother pushed her younger sister to go wash her face and change her clothes, then laughed and said to Aunt Lo Tu, "You know, my daughter is a famous girl for her. Hard work in the village. She's good at household chores and farm work, even better than a man. Her personality is also gentle and obedient. As for her looks, I'm not bragging. The daughters I, Ngoa Tu, have given birth to are the prettiest in 10 miles and 8 villages. Look at how beautiful my Tan Bin is. Chide is just a little tanned from working in the fields in the summer. She'll be white again after a winter." Hearing her mother praise her younger sister so much, Tan Bin only felt sarcasm. Hardworking, good at work, gentle, obedient, beautiful. These good qualities were all for serving others or for pleasing others. She only heard Aunt Lo Tu say, "How could I not know this? It is precisely because I know the girl is good that I came here. The other family has already agreed. They like Chude. The betrothal gift is this." Aunt Lo Tu held up 5 fingers. 5? 50? Tan Bin saw the gleeful look in her mother's eyes. So 50 yuan was enough to sell her younger sister? If she knew it was 500 yuan, wouldn't her mother go crazy with joy? Sure enough, it was not outside her expectations. Aunt Lo Tu shook her head with a smug expression. "Hey, what are you talking about, 50? It's 500. 500? Go Atu, Tan Bin's mother, jumped up, unable to believe her ears, her voice trembling. Tan Bin saw her mother so excited and really feared that she would faint. She had to pour a bucket of cold water on her. "Is there something wrong with the groom's family?" Why would they give so much for a betrothal gift? Ngo Ah-tu almost jumped up and slapped her. Shut your mouth! The adults are talking. What's a little girl interrupting for? After saying that, she laughed and said to the matchmaker, Aunt Lo-tu, tell me more. Anyway, Thon Bin had already seen it clearly. No matter what she said or didn't say, her mother had already made up her mind. As long as the other party was a man or a disabled person, as long as he was still breathing, her mother would marry off her younger sister. Aunt Lo-tu was a little awkward, but she quickly regained her smiling expression. Don't worry, I'm a very honest matchmaker. I would never hide anything. This is a basic principle of being a matchmaker. It's just that the groom is a little older, 30 years old. Hearing 30 years old, Ngo Ah-tu breathed a sigh of relief. She was already mentally prepared for 60. His leg is a little inconvenient, Aunt Lo-tu revealed slowly. How inconvenient? Ngo Ah-tu asked. Is he really disabled? He got injured a few years ago. It's inconvenient for him to walk. One leg is shorter than the other. It doesn't look very good. Ngo Ah-tu slapped her thigh. What does that count for? Yes, compared to a disabled person, that's nothing. There's one last thing, Aunt Lo-tu said. He is remarried. His previous wife passed away, but they didn't have any children. If Shuda marries him and has a child, it's no different from getting married for the first time. Ngo Ah-tu's eyes lit up. What a great match! Thon Bin could only pour more cold water on her. Aunt Lo-tu, where is his previous wife? She's dead, right? Thon Bin asked again. How did she die? This, Aunt Lo-tu hesitated. She died of an illness. Really? Thon Bin no longer played along. I heard that the lame man beat his wife to a pulp every day, and she couldn't take it anymore, so she jumped into the river to commit suicide. Don't talk nonsense. Aunt Lo-tu's face changed. Thon Bin smiled coldly. Whether I'm talking nonsense or not, you know best in your heart. You would even be a matchmaker for something like this. Aren't you afraid of not being able to sleep at night after taking this money? HMPH! Aunt Lo-tu angrily got up to leave. I thought your family was good-hearted, so I made this trip. Your daughter has such a poisonous tongue, Ah-tu. I'm not getting involved anymore. I'm not going to talk about this match anymore. I'm telling you, from now on, I won't take care of your Chudis matters anymore. Ngo Ah-tu quickly pulled Aunt Lo-tu to stay, repeating, Don't go! Don't go! Thon Bin smiled coldly again. Today, I'm also making it clear here. If anyone dares to come to my house and talk about these ridiculous matches and push Chude into a fire pit, don't blame me for grabbing a broom and chasing them out. After saying that, Thon Bin actually grabbed the broom and swung it. Aunt Lo-tu stomped her foot angrily and cursed, then ran away. Ngo Ah-tu turned around and slapped Thon Bin. Why did I give birth to a jinx like you? If I had known you were so low class when you were born, I should have drowned you in a bucket of water. Her mother cursed to her face. She grabbed the carrying pole at the door, intending to beat her. Chude, who was in the room, ran out and hugged Ngo Ah-tu tightly. Mom, don't hit my sister! Don't hit her! Get out of the way! Ngo Ah-tu pushed Chude away. If I don't beat her to death today, she's not my daughter. Chude, get out of the way! Thon Bin also wanted to put a final end to this matter. When Ngo Ah-tu's carrying pole really came down, Thon Bin grabbed it tightly and questioned her. Mom, I want to ask you, are Chideti and I really your daughters? Ngo Ah-tu angrily pulled on the carrying pole, but she couldn't get it away. What kind of disloyal thing did I raise? Did you climb a high branch so you don't recognize your parents anymore? If we are, how could you have the heart to let Shuda go to that family to be ordered around like a cow or a horse and be beaten to a pulp by a man? Thon Bin remembered her past life, when Shude was thin, sickly, and had white hair at a young age, and finally died alone in the hospital. Her heart ached. Her mother was speechless and said stubbornly, if she was beaten, it must be because the woman wasn't good. Why would they beat her for no reason? Archide is so well-behaved and hardworking. If she marries there, she'll only have a good life. How could she be beaten? It was the same victim-blaming rhetoric. A good life? Do you consider it a good life to serve an entire family, young and old, from morning to night, with their food and hygiene, and then at night, still have to serve the young and old by washing their feet? Or is it a good life to work in the fields by herself, doing 2 men's worth of work, and on top of that, she's constantly being beaten? Is that a good life? You can go enjoy that kind of good fortune yourself. Ah. Before Thon Bin could finish, she felt a sharp pain in her forehead. a large porcelain bowl hit her on the head. The person who threw it was her father, who had just returned from the fields. Bin felt something warm flowing down her forehead. She touched it, and it was blood. The porcelain bowl fell to the ground with a loud bang. Shude was terrified and quickly hugged her sister, starting to cry. "Mom, Dad, don't hit my sister. Don't hit me. I agree." "Don't agree." Then Bin stood up. "Follow me, sister." She held Shude's hand tightly, her resolve suddenly firm. "Yes, I will take Shude away." She couldn't stay here forever. As soon as she left, her parents would definitely take the betrothal gift and marry off Shude. It would be better to take her away. The most important thing was that by taking Chiade away, she could have time to truly study. But her words, "Follow me, sister," stunned the entire Lam family. Her mother scoffed first. "Follow you? What right do you have to take the daughter I raised?" With 500 yuan, Tan Bin said with certainty. "Don't you want the 500 yuan betrothal gift, Mom and Dad? I'll give you 500 yuan all the same. I'm taking Shude with me." You really have 500 yuan? Her mother looked at her, unable to believe it. Yes, Tan Bin really had it. Ko Kwan Tan sent money home every month, and her mother always gave it to her. This time, when she came home to visit, he also gave her all his savings. 500 yuan was not a small amount. She pulled out a thick wad of bills. Tan Bin held Shude, Mu's hand tightly. "If you trust me, wait until tomorrow, and I'll take the money out and bring it to you. If you don't trust me, follow me now, and let's go to the bank to get the money." Yesterday, she had brought her savings book with her when she went to the county town, preparing to use a large sum of money when she came home. She had forgotten to put it away, and it was still in her small cloth bag today. On this matter, her mother was really very decisive and acted quickly. She immediately waved her hand. "Let's go get the money with you." This was her way of agreeing to her taking Shude. "Let's go." The weather was clearly hot, but Tan Bin's heart was cold. Her forehead was still bleeding, but her parents clearly didn't care. Some people were just like that, for 2 lifetimes. Immediately, she took Shude and her mother to the county town to get money. In this era, there was no bank in their village. As they left the house, her father seemed to want to say something, but in the end, he swallowed it. In the small bank office in the county town, Tan Bin counted out 50 10-yuan bills for her mother. The moment she handed the money over, she suddenly felt that from now on, the two sides were no longer related. She hugged Shude as if she had taken a burden off her shoulders, but also with a hint of bitterness. "Okay, I won't talk about this match for Shude anymore. Shude, you can go with your sister for a while." "It's not for a while. It's that she's following me from now on," Tan Bin corrected her. Her mother had just received the money, a huge sum of money she had never seen before in her life. She could buy a lot of things for her son. For a moment, she didn't argue with them. Okay, you can stay as long as you want." She then happily stuffed the money into her pocket and left. As for Chiade, she saw her mother leave like that, and her tears fell down her face into Tan Bin's arms. After all, she was a child leaving her mother for the first time. After all, she was only 18 years old. "Let's go, we're also going home. Your brother-in-law isn't home often. You can sleep with me. We'll rely on each other from now on, sister." Tan Bin stroked her sister's dry hair gently. Yes, Shude nodded. In her heart, everything that happened today was too fast. So fast that it was unbelievable. But she really didn't want her sister to marry such a man and be beaten to death. After all the commotion, Tan Bin was hungry. She thought her sister hadn't eaten anything either, so she took her to the state-run restaurant for a bowl of noodles. It was the first time Shude had been to such a place, and everything seemed new to her. The noodles served to her also tasted delicious. Tan Bin looked at her, feeling a little comforted. She smiled. "Is it good?" Shude nodded with a little shyness. "Do you like this place?" Tan Bin asked again. Shude only knew how to nod, and then her face blushed because she had never seen such a place. "In the future, I'll let you eat more delicious food and go to better places." "Shude, let's change your name? Let's call ourselves Lam Tan Ban. From now on, you'll have a bright future and advance quickly," Tan Bin said, weighing each word. After her younger sister drank the last sip of the broth, she nodded. "Yes, I'll listen to you, sister." Let's go back home." Tan Bin led Shude back to the county village. Only then did she calm down and think that she had been a little too much with her in-laws. For a while, it was easy to talk about the matter. It wasn't a big deal to bring her sister home for a few days, but to stay for a long time and also to give her parents, family 500 yuan was indeed a big deal. She decided to talk about this with Ko Kwantan first and see what he had to say. While thinking, she led her sister back to the village. The sky gradually turned completely dark. At the entrance of the village, she saw a flickering light. When she got closer, it was someone holding a torch and walking back and forth at the entrance of the village, and it was a child. As she got closer, the child ran towards her with the torch. It was Chi Vian. Chi Vian, why are you here? She asked, running towards him. It's already dark, and Mommy still hasn't come home. Chi Vian held the torch high, lighting up the road in front of her. Only then did Thonbin remember the lie she had told the child. She was afraid of the dark. She suddenly felt a place in her heart also light up with the torch, bright and warm. Some people, you only need to show them a little kindness, and they can light you up like the sun. Thank you, Chi Vian. Let's go home. She took the torch from Chi Vian's hand, took his hand, and walked home at a steady pace with Che De. When her in-laws saw her bringing her sister home, they only thought that a relative had come to visit for a while. This was common in the countryside, so they didn't say anything. They even reheated the leftover food and added 2 scrambled eggs for them to eat. Finally, they settled down for the night. Thonbin saw that her younger sister was asleep and carefully put away the paper that her mother had signed with her fingerprint. She sat down and wrote a letter to County Kwantan explaining the situation. She wrote neatly, "My dear Kwantan." Seeing these 2 words on the paper, she felt a sense of familiarity and strangeness. It seemed that she had never written his name before. She was in a daze for a moment before she wrote again. She didn't lie, writing clearly how she had spent 500 yuan. In the letter, she also added a sentence. It was an emergency, and such a large sum of money, I didn't have time to talk it over with you. At the end of the letter, she asked him to be careful and pay attention to his safety. The next day, she took the letter to the production team and asked the branch secretary to send it for her. The branch secretary saw that it was a letter to the army and agreed immediately. She thought it would take a long time to get a reply, but a few days later, little Vuong from the production team ran over and called her to answer the phone, saying that Brother Than had called from the army. She ran to him like the wind, not knowing what his purpose for calling was. Was he going to blame her? After all, 500 yuan was a large part of the money he had given her. There was only one phone in the entire village, at the production team, and the signal was very bad. She kept saying, "Hello," and finally his deep voice came through. "Hello? Kwantan," her voice sounded a little rushed. "Don't worry, I received your letter. Don't feel pressured. The money I gave you was for you to spend. Just take care of Chude so she feels at ease staying at home. Don't worry, I'll write a letter to Mom and Dad to explain." He spoke very fast, but every word was clear and distinct, as if he was whispering into her ear. Okay. She suddenly felt a stinging in her eyes. In fact, she had already guessed he would say that. He was such a good person, but hearing him say it still felt different. After he finished speaking, it seemed that he was about to hang up. Then Bin quickly said, "Kwantan, I want to go to the army to visit you. Is that okay? I want to go on a family visit." "What are you coming for?" "Don't come." The signal started to be bad. Is it not allowed? She wasn't too sure. It's not that. You. Thonbin walked around the production team office with the phone, but she couldn't find a signal. In the end, the call was cut off, and all that was left was the beeping sound. Thonbin hung up the phone helplessly and returned home dejectedly. When she got home, she saw that a guest had arrived. It wasn't a guest. It was County Kwantan's older sister, Ko Hu Lian. Ko Kwantan was the 2nd son in the family. He had an older sister who married into the neighboring village and had a daughter. In her past life, Thonbin didn't care about the county family and had never called her sister-in-law sister. After County Kwantan's sacrifice, she left the county family and didn't know about her sister-in-law's fate later. Ko Hu Lian was showing her daughter Chumak Chudian's new clothes, talking so much that her saliva was flying everywhere. "Your sister definitely bought this from the general store. The general store sells things at a high price. Let me tell you, my husband can buy things at wholesale prices. Very cheap. Look at my sister, and look at the clothes Tumak is wearing. They were all bought by him, at least half price." Hearing this, a sudden thought flashed through Thonbin's mind. Sister? Sister? What do you mean by wholesale price?" Thonbin asked quickly. Ko Hu Lian saw her come back, grabbed her, and asked, "Did you buy this from the general store?" "I already compared them. The goods are exactly the same, but the prices are very different. Look at mine. only the color is different. On Ko Hu-lien's face, the pride she felt for her husband's ability was evident. Sister, I want to go see. Can you and my brother-in-law take me to see? Thon Bin, who was originally dejected, suddenly became very excited. Ko Hu-lien naturally agreed. Wasn't this an opportunity to show off her husband's ability? Before, her husband Dukan was always called lazy and not hardworking, always wandering outside. One person was anxious, and the other liked to show off. The two of them immediately made an appointment to go the next day to find the place that sold clothes at wholesale prices. When her older sister left, Thon Bin even gave her niece Tiumach a handful of candy. Early the next morning, Thon Bin was on her way on time, bringing Chiode to meet her older sister and her brother-in-law, Dukan. He was thin, fair-skinned, and really didn't look like someone who worked in the fields. It was said that his ancestors were street vendors, so maybe he inherited this gene of liking to travel all over the place. There was no place in 10 miles and 8 villages that he hadn't been to. It's a clothing factory in the county town outside. The warehouse is full of clothes. I can take you to see, but it's very far. Aren't you afraid? Dukan asked. Let's go. We'll go early and come back early, Thon Bin said a little anxiously. Okay, Dukan was also very straightforward. It was indeed very far. They left early in the morning and didn't arrive until the afternoon. But Thon Bin had overestimated Dukan's ability. Dukan was only familiar with the factory's warehouse keeper. To buy so many goods from the warehouse, he had to meet with the person in charge of the clothing factory. After he said all the good things he could, the warehouse keeper agreed to take them to meet the head of the business department. The head of the business department had never encountered such a thing before. One set of clothes. Our clothes are only supplied to general stores and department stores. We don't sell retail. Who buys a single set of clothes and doesn't go to a department store, but comes all the way to the factory to buy it? He immediately refused. What if I buy 100 sets or even more? Thon Bin said with certainty, but this scared both Ko Hu-lien and her husband, as well as Chiode. Ko Hu-lien tried to pull her shirt. The head of the business department almost thought she was a scammer. Manager, we will pay in cash today. We can complete the transaction immediately. Why would I scam you? Thon Bin took out the money immediately, a thick wad of 10 yuan bills. I want to buy some autumn and winter clothes. The head of the business department hesitated for a moment and finally took them to the warehouse. This is all autumn and winter material. Take a look and see what styles you want. Let me know when you've made your selections. Aren't there any samples to choose from in the warehouse? What kind of business is this? But Thon Bin didn't argue and hurried into the warehouse. When she went in, Thon Bin realized that this was clothing that had been in storage for a long time. Indeed, they were piled up like mountains, with a faint smell characteristic of a place that had been unattended for a long time. Thon Bin, this manager is a scammer. This is all last year's clothing, Dukan whispered to her. Thon Bin glanced at Dukan. She didn't expect him to be a little bit smart. It's okay, just follow me and choose. Fortunately, these clothes were packed in bales and classified and organized in an orderly manner. Thon Bin chose a set to look at the style. If she liked it, she would tell Dukan to carry the whole bale. After choosing a room, Thon Bin had chosen about a few hundred sets of clothes. She took them all to the door of the warehouse and then went to find the head of the business department. Ko Hu-lien looked at this scene and almost went crazy. She thought she was just bringing her sister-in-law to buy 1 or 2 sets to wear. But she bought several hundred sets in one go. Even if she wore a different one every day, she wouldn't finish them all in a year. Thinking about this sister-in-law who was digging into her husband's family's wealth, she guessed, is she gonna split a few dozen sets with everyone? How could she let her squander her brother's money like this? Ko Hu-lien immediately sat down on the piles of clothes and cried, not letting Thon Bin buy them. She threatened to send a telegram to her brother. Thon Bin ignored her at this point and went straight to the business office building. Ko Hu-lien grabbed her sleeve, not letting her go. She cried and shouted, "How much money does my brother have? He's just a wage earner. He's so frugal with his money and gives it all to you, and you squander it like this. Today, I'd rather hang myself here than let you spend the money this way." Thon Bin was a little impatient. She shook her sleeve off and said to Dukan, "Take care of your wife." In her past life, Thon Bin had become the CEO of a restaurant chain, so she was used to giving orders at work. Her voice, naturally, had a sense of authority. Dukan was a little afraid of her scolding. Besides, he vaguely guessed what Thon Bin wanted to do, so he pulled Ko Hu-lien away from Thon Bin and whispered to her, "Don't make a fuss." Ko Hu-lien was used to listening to Dukan. No matter how angry she was inside, there was nothing she could do when Do-kan held her tightly. She didn't dare to shout, fearing that Do-kan would scold her. She just wiped her tears and followed Thonbin, hating her in her heart. Don't even think about Thonbin taking all these hundreds of sets of clothes to her parents' house. If she does, I'll definitely instigate my brother to divorce her. Thonbin had already returned to the business office. Manager Fo, you're the head of the business department of a big factory, and you're scamming ordinary people? Thonbin's face was dark, and she took the initiative. The manager's attitude wasn't very good either. What do you mean by that? Thonbin threw the clothes she was holding on the ground. You see for yourself what kind of quality this is. Both sets of clothes on the ground are moldy. Is a big factory like yours selling us things like this? Thonbin was indignant. Did you think we were farmers and were easy to fool because we hadn't seen anything? No, how could that be? With the moldy clothes in front of him, the manager was no longer so certain. You saw that we were farmers and all women, so you bullied us. Look at this yourself. This is all clothing from a few years ago. Thonbin shouted loudly, intentionally making her eyes red. Do-kan is a man? So what is he? The manager felt a little embarrassed by Thonbin's questioning. He had no choice but to say, Comrade, we haven't produced this year's autumn and winter clothes yet. We only have last year's. This isn't last year's clothing, Thonbin insisted. Then, do you still want these clothes? Or do you want to wait for the new ones? The manager had no choice but to ask. We don't have time to wait for the new ones. Thonbin pretended to hesitate for a long time and finally made up her mind. We still want to buy them, but you have to give us a discount. The manager thought for a moment, waved his hand. No problem. In the end, Thonbin bought them at a lower price than she had expected. The winter wool coats were only 1 yuan each, and the other types were even cheaper. Thonbin bought a total of 500 pieces of all kinds. The transportation problem became another problem. The kind manager went all the way and agreed to let them take 100 pieces first, and he would find a way to hire a car to transport the rest to the county town for them. Thonbin was very happy and thanked the manager. The manager smiled bitterly. Isn't it because I'm afraid she'll come back and say I'm bullying women? Do-kan was standing there. Did no one see him? Carrying 100 sets of clothes was not a difficult task for the four of them. It had to be said that Do-kan was lazy when it came to farm work, but he was very active when it came to buying clothes with Thonbin. He carried the biggest portion by himself. The four of them, plus 100 sets of clothes, took a bus that went around the city, borrowed a handcart, and took turns pushing the clothes back to the county village. The whole time, Ko Huliang kept sighing. When they returned to the county family's house, most of the houses in the village had already turned off their lights and gone to bed. The same had happened with her in-laws. They heard the noise and came out with their jackets. They were shocked to see so many clothes. Ko Huliang immediately pulled Aunt Sao into the room to talk, not daring to say anything in front of Thonbin. Besides, Do-kan was also very excited about this matter, so she didn't dare to argue with her husband. When they got home, she immediately told Aunt Sao that Thonbin had spent all the money to buy 500 sets of clothes. Aunt Sao was shocked to hear this. What has bewitched Thon's mother? He gave her all the money to manage? She's too wasteful. This isn't a person who knows how to manage a family. Ko Huliang started crying again at the thought of this. Aunt Sao was so angry that she rushed out. She saw Thonbin and her sister, as well as Do-kan, guarding the pile of clothes. She grabbed a pair of scissors and squeezed. She truly hated that her son's blood and sweat money had been spent by this prodigal woman. She had lived most of her life and had never seen anyone spend money like this. Aunt Sao grabbed the scissors and was about to cut the clothes. Thonbin quickly shouted, "Mom, what are you doing?" Aunt Sao came back to her senses. If she cut them, not only would the money not be recovered, but the clothes would also be lost. But what would country people like them do with so many clothes? Aunt Sao sat on the ground in despair, crying miserably and lamenting. Ancestors of the county family, how can I face you in the next life? We had to marry this prodigal. Thon, what kind of person did you see? Are you possessed? Thonbin wanted to explain to Aunt Sao, but Aunt Sao couldn't hear her. She called her father-in-law. Ong, what should we do now? How will we live from now on? You should go out and send her back to the Lam family. We can't serve a daughter-in-law like this. Her father-in-law, County Daifu, puffed on his pipe and sighed repeatedly. Thonbin's sister was still silent. She would only listen to her sister and do what she told her to. At that moment, she was also scared and huddled next to her sister, whispering, "Sister." In her heart, she was already prepared. If her sister was really kicked out by the county family, they wouldn't be able to go back to their own family either. In that case, she would rely on her sister. Tan Bin patted her hand to comfort her. With her parents' support, Ko Hu Lien was no longer afraid. She pounced on Tan Bin's face. Du Kan couldn't even stop her. "How much more money do you have? Give it all to me," Ko Hu Lien said, and then began to wrestle with her, wanting to search her. It was chaos. No one wanted to listen to what Tan Bin had to say, until a small figure came between Tan Bin and Ko Hu Lien. A clear child's voice rang out. "Everyone, stop arguing. I have money. Please stop arguing." The child drew out his voice, temporarily stopping the chaotic argument. "Chi Vian, this is an adult matter. Don't get involved. Go to sleep." Aunt Sao was heartbroken at the moment, with tears streaming down her face. Chi Vian didn't leave. He leaned on Tan Bin, his eyes bright. He placed what he was holding firmly in his hand on the pile of clothes and said clearly, "Grandma, don't scold my aunt anymore. I have money. I'll buy clothes for her. Can everyone stop arguing?" He hesitated a little when calling Tan Bin, finally calling her aunt. On the pile of clothes was a pile of 10 yuan bills. He didn't know how many there were, but there were definitely more than 100. A child's thought was very simple. If my aunt wants to buy clothes, then she can buy them. If she spends all the money and the family has no more, I have money. He just wanted the adults to stop arguing. Aunt Sao's eyes became even redder upon hearing this. She wiped her tears and said, "Silly child, how are you going to use your money? That's the money your father left for you. Keep it for yourself." If Aunt Sao or Ko Hu Lien had had any intention of touching Chi Vian's money that day, Tan Bin would not have forgiven them, but they didn't. Ko Hu Lien even took the money and returned it to Chi Vian's hand. Tan Bin felt even more certain of her judgment. Her mother-in-law and sister-in-law were not bad people. They just couldn't accept her shocking actions. Yes, in this era, if you looked at the entire county village, or even the entire township or county, there was no woman who would buy so many clothes. Their vision was only as wide as the county. "Mom, sister, everyone, listen to me." She laid out her idea, speaking seriously. "Please trust me just this once." It was as if she had dropped a bomb on the county family. Everyone's mouths were wide open. Even Tan Bin's sister was stunned. Her sister's idea was really too shocking. Du Kan's eyes lit up, both excited and agitated. He had guessed correctly, but this sister-in-law was even more capable than he had imagined. He had only thought of reselling them, but his sister-in-law even wanted to change the styles. Only Chi Vian was the calmest because he didn't understand anything. Since he didn't understand, he wasn't afraid. He even nodded. "I'll help my aunt sell them. This way, you won't argue anymore, right?" Aunt Sao and Ko Hu Lien felt very hopeless. So hopeless that they couldn't even cry or scold anymore. They were sure that the money was gone forever. Who would be so stupid as to buy clothes from her? Her father-in-law, County Dai Fu, took a puff on his pipe, his heart aching. "Then sell them. What else can we do? We have to try everything." The whole family now thought this way. Aunt Sao cried as she spoke. "Tan Bin, don't do such a foolish thing again. If you have any ideas, you have to discuss them with the family." She also didn't mention sending this daughter-in-law back again. After all, Tan Bin wasn't squandering money for herself. She wanted to earn money. Her starting point was good. It's just that she was young and had wild ideas. Who hasn't made mistakes when they were young? Her intentions were good. She might change later. It must be said that once the county family made up their mind about something, they acted very quickly. As soon as Aunt Sao finished speaking, she squatted down next to the pile of clothes, waiting for Tan Bin to tell her how to alter them. Ko Hu Lien also squatted down, staring intently at her. Tan Bin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Mom, sister, go to sleep first. We'll start tomorrow. It's not too late." The two of them didn't listen to anything she said. They insisted on starting immediately. It's money, and a lot of money at that. Tan Bin couldn't persuade them, so she gave in. "Okay, let's start. Let's start with washing." The two sets she had thrown at the manager were dirty, but the ones she had chosen were relatively clean and, at least, didn't have mold. She announced that the first step was to wash. Even her father-in-law, who was about to go to bed, stayed up. He didn't know how to sew, but he did know how to wash. Seeing the whole family put aside their anger and despair toward her and work with such enthusiasm, Tan Bin felt a warmth inside. The Ko family's spirit of unity was truly admirable. It was a family like this that could raise a son as good as County Kwantan. The whole family worked together to wash 100 pieces of clothing until midnight. Everyone was exhausted and crawled to bed. Her sister-in-law and her husband also stayed the night. Thanbin, however, wasn't sleepy. She drew her ideas for altering the clothes. In her previous life, she had lived for almost 75 years and seen a few decades of fashion trends. She didn't dare to be too radical with her changes. It was the late 70s, and the 80s were approaching, so she decided to alter the clothes according to the popular trends of the 80s and 90s. After another night, her sketches were almost finished. Her in-laws got up early and saw her still drawing, and their hearts softened. Her father-in-law went to work in the fields early in the morning, and her mother-in-law even cooked her a bowl of eggs with sugar. The next day, they officially began the task of altering the clothes. Thanbin showed them her designs and took a set to demonstrate how to take it apart, cut it, and sew it back together. The women in the county family and Haimoi knew how to sew. They usually bought fabric and made their own clothes. Thanbin cut and sewed a few sets herself, then guided them to do the same. When she felt they could handle it on their own, she handed the task over to them. The Ko family had a sewing machine that they had bought when Thanbin got married, but she had been too lazy to ever use it. Her mother-in-law, however, was very skilled with it, so she took charge of the sewing machine. Seeing that her mother was working alone too slowly, Ko Hulian impatiently told Dokan to bring their own sewing machine. This was how they had two sewing machines running at the same time. Dokan, who didn't know how to sew, went to work in the fields with Ko Daipu, all because Aunt Sao was on the sewing machine all day, and the county family's farm work was getting behind. As a son-in-law, Dokan went to work in place of his mother-in-law. Even Chivien was not idle. He helped with all kinds of small tasks. Looking at Chivien's small figure, another idea came to Thanbin. After a few days of hard work, the sound of sewing machines was constantly ringing, and the 100 sets of clothes were completely altered. Thanbin also found a way to borrow an iron to press the clothes, preparing them for sale. The irons of that era were very simple: an iron shell with charcoal inside and some water to create steam for ironing. Just then, the rest of the clothes arrived in the county. Dokan knew a lot of people and had an acquaintance there. He had left this person's address with the sub-manager Fo, who had contacted a truck that was already going that way and conveniently dropped the clothes off at his acquaintance's house. The acquaintance sent a message telling them to come pick up the goods. Thanbin couldn't help but sigh. Accustomed to the speed and convenience of the phone era, everything was now really inconvenient. For example, they now had to consider the transportation problem for the 100 pieces of clothing they were going to sell. But since there were only 100 sets, they would carry them back the same way they had brought them. It was at this moment that everyone found out that Thanbin's goal was not just the county, but the province. Ko Hulian had only been to the county a handful of times in her life, and going to the province was something she had never dared to imagine. How brave did a person have to be? But it was too late to stop it. Ko Hulian could only join everyone in their anxiety and anticipation of going to the province. They were also a little excited. Chivien also went with them. Thanbin wanted to take him so that he could broaden his horizons. But later, they realized that taking him was the right decision. Not to mention, the group struggled to carry the 100 pieces of clothing and make several bus transfers to get to the province. When they arrived, it was early in the morning. Thanbin first found a place for everyone to freshen up, at least wash up and straighten their clothes, before going directly to the provincial general store to sell their clothes. But they were not successful. Thanbin took Dokan and her sister-in-law with some clothing samples to the counter. The sales clerks only glanced at them and ignored them. Dokan, unwilling to give up, kept promoting their clothes. "Our clothes have new styles and are not available locally. The prices are also cheap. Please take a look." Thanbin also said, "Could you introduce us to your manager? It will only take a moment, and then we'll leave." The sales clerks just rolled their eyes. "We really have a letter of introduction," Thanbin said, taking out a letter from the branch secretary. The sales clerk lost his patience and began to chase them away. "What kind of people are you? Go, go, go! If you don't leave, I'll call someone to throw you out." "What's wrong with you people?" Ko Hulian put her hands on her hips, ready to retort, but Thanbin stopped her. "Let's go to another store." But they went to several other stores and were chased out of all of them. When they arrived at the last store, Ko Hulian was so angry that she didn't even want to go in. She had lost all hope. She and Chivien stayed at the door with the clothes, feeling worried and scared, their eyes red, almost crying. Thanbin comforted her for a few moments, then took Dokan and Haimoi inside alone. But before she could take a few steps, she heard a commotion at the door. She quickly turned around to see a man pointing at Ko Hulien and scolding her. Ko Hulien was frightened and crying. Chi Vian stood in front of her, trying to protect her, but he was just a child, and his face was also full of panic. "What's wrong? Let's settle it by talking," said Tan Bin, immediately protecting Ko Hulien and Chi Vian. Ko Hulien felt a sense of security and cried, "I didn't do anything. I just touched that shirt, and he said I dirtied it and demanded that I pay for it." Tan Bin looked at the gray shirt Ko Hulien was pointing at. It had no stains or tears. She also felt angry. "I've never heard that you're not allowed to touch clothes in a store. What kind of rule is that you have to pay for it just because you touched it?" Other store employees gradually gathered around the man, and the crowd of onlookers became larger and larger. The man looked at her with contempt. "It's not that you're not allowed to touch it, it's that some people don't deserve to touch it. Not letting you touch it is for your own good. What if you stain it and can't afford to pay for it?" "Then, is this shirt very expensive?" Then Bin asked. "Yes, it's very expensive. It's not something you can afford." The man became even more smug. "Hurry up and leave. Look at the mud on your shoes. Don't dirty our floor." Another employee chimed in, with contempt about to take away the bags of clothes. "What are these filthy things? Don't leave them in front of our store." They were all about to throw their things away. "Stop!" Fan Bin shouted. "Look at the slogan on the front of your store. Serving the people. Are we not the people just because we're from the countryside?" At her words, the two employees were speechless. The crowd of onlookers also began to express their disagreement, saying that they were wrong and that they shouldn't look down on people like that. Tan Bin looked at the shirt. "I'm definitely going to buy this shirt today," the man sneered. "This is the most exclusive department store in the province? Do you know how much this shirt costs?" The man held up 3 fingers. 30 won. 30 won for a shirt was indeed very expensive. Ko Hulien, forgetting her own humiliation, was afraid that her sister-in-law would act impulsively and actually buy it. What she feared came true. Tan Bin actually took out 3 bills and handed them to Chi Vian. "See? Don't look down on people. I want to try it on." Ko Hulien was really anxious. Even Dukan was anxious. It was completely unnecessary to spend money to get revenge this way, but Tan Bin wasn't one to take advice. She took the shirt and went inside to try it on. Not only did she try it on, but she also looked at herself in the mirror from all angles, saying that it was a little big and she wanted a smaller size. The employee patiently brought her a smaller one. Then she said it was too small and she still wanted the big one. Then she said this color didn't suit her and tried on all the colors in the store. The employee's patience reached its limit, but because of Tan Bin's previous question, are we not the people just because we're from the countryside? And the large crowd of onlookers, he was afraid of causing a public scene and forced himself to hold back his anger. Finally, Tan Bin put on the original gray shirt, looked at herself in the mirror, and exclaimed, "It's really beautiful. That's right. Our clothes, if you'll allow me, are the best in the country." "A Shanghai brand," the employee said smugly. Tan Bin smiled, took off the shirt, and handed it back to him. "It's beautiful, and it's also very expensive. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to buy it anymore." The employee's face turned red with anger. "I was just joking with you." Tan Bin had a triumphant look on her face, as if saying, "What can you do about it?" She led her sister and everyone out of the store with their clothes, her head held high. The onlookers just laughed and made way for them, as if they were watching a comedy show. A few nosy uncles even pointed at the employee and said, "You were taught a lesson, weren't you? The proverb is very true. A guest is a guest." The store was next to a large square, and it was a Sunday, so there were a lot of people there. Some were playing and others were selling goods. It was very lively. Only Tan Bin and her group were guarding several large bags of goods, looking dejected, especially Ko Hulien, who looked haggard. "What do we do now? What do we do now? What do we do with so many clothes if no one buys them?" She kept muttering, which irritated people. Duquesne told her to stop muttering, and the two of them started arguing again. "It's all your fault. If you hadn't taken Tan Bin to buy those shabby clothes, none of this would have happened," Ko Hulien cried as she argued. Duquesne was speechless. The one who had caused this was indeed him. Fan Bin looked at the street vendors in the square. Some were selling malt candy, some were selling pots and pans, and some were selling candied hawberries. The provincial capital was indeed a provincial capital. Even the small vendors were lively. Her eyes lit up. Stop talking, all of you, get up and let me look at you. They didn't understand, but they all listened to her. There were 5 of them in total. Ko Hu Lian and Hai Moi were a little dark-skinned, but it was fine. They both had good figures. Hai Moi was young and full of collagen, and Ko Hu Lian was mature and voluptuous. Their facial features were very similar to County Kwanthon's and were very beautiful. Dekan was fair and had an intellectual look, but unfortunately, this time, they only had women's clothes. Than Bin took Hai Moi and Ko Hu Lian and left Dokan and Chin Bien to watch the goods. Half an hour later, the 3 women returned, and Dukan and Chi Bien were stunned. Dukan even nudged Chi Bien. Are those your aunt and Aunt Tan Bin? Am I seeing things? Dukan couldn't help but feel amazed. He didn't know what kind of magic those 3 women had used. Their faces were the same, but they looked like the actresses he saw on movie posters in the big city. Than Bin hadn't done anything special. She had simply taken the 2 of them to a barber shop to have their straight hair washed and dried. She bought a bottle of lotion, and the 3 of them applied a layer. With no makeup or tools, Than Bin could only heat a hair clip to curl their eyelashes. Luckily, the Cohen Lam families had naturally double-lidded eyes and long eyelashes. With just a little touch-up, they looked stunning. They changed into the long pants and colorful shirts they had altered. They tucked the shirts into their pants and pulled them out a little, which looked very beautiful. But this time, they were mainly selling autumn and winter clothes, so they each took out a jacket and put it on. Although it was hot, it was for the sake of the sale. Looking at Chi Bien, another idea came to Than Bin. She changed him into a child's jumpsuit and a white shirt, with a child's brown wool jacket on top. After he changed, she and Chi Bien looked like a mother and son wearing matching outfits. Than Bin herself felt that Chi Bien's aura had completely changed, no less than a child model from a few decades later. For the final step, she instructed Dukan to find some cardboard boxes, stack them up, and cover them with a piece of cloth. This was a simple display stand. She then used a large piece of cardboard to write, "Latest fashion clothes." This was the first time Than Bin was selling goods after her rebirth. It had begun. Soon, their stall was filled with people who wanted to buy the clothes that Than Bin and the others were wearing. The best sellers were the outfits that Than Bin and Chi Bien were wearing, and people bought the complete set. The children's clothes sold out quickly. There were still many people who hadn't been able to buy any and crowded around the stall, refusing to leave, just hoping to find another set. But soon, not to mention the children's clothes, the adult clothes also gradually sold out. The people who were waiting didn't wait any longer and quickly bought what was left. At noon, all of their clothes had been sold. There were still many people who wanted to buy and asked them when they would sell again. Dong Gibin thought for a moment. The new batch of clothes had already arrived at the county. This time, they would go home and work fast. They would definitely have a new batch next Sunday. She promised that they would be back next Sunday. Only then did the people who hadn't been able to buy anything leave reluctantly. When they arrived, they had 4 full sacks. Now, all that was left were empty sacks. The Ammend, Hai Moi, Dokan, and Ko Hu Lian looked at each other, their eyes filled with tears of happiness. Ko Hu Lian, especially, sobbed. Just as they were tidying up the stall, a middle-aged woman came over to their stall. "Hello, I'd like to buy a set of clothes. Do you have any left?" Than Bin turned around and looked at the woman's rather elegant clothes. "I'm sorry, we've sold out. We'll bring another batch next Sunday. If you have time, you can come take a look," Than Bin said with a smile. "Next Sunday?" The woman looked at the clothes the group was wearing. "Aren't those the sets you're wearing? Sell me those sets, and the child's one too." This, Than Bin looked at them. If she sold them all, it would be over 100 yuan. It wasn't that she was like those contemptuous sales clerks at the department store, but who would buy clothes that way? "We've been wearing these sets all day. They're full of sweat, and it's very hot," she said, which was true. But the woman said, "It's okay. I have to buy them. I just like them. Is that okay?" How could they refuse a customer who wanted to buy? Than Bin took everyone to change their clothes and sold their sample sets to the woman. That way, they had really completely sold out. Not a single set was left. They changed back into the clothes they had come in. Let's go eat first and then go home," Than Bin said with a smile. "Mm-hmm." Ko Hu Lian nodded repeatedly, tears still streaming down her face. Than Bin took Chi Bien's hand with one hand and Hai Moi's with the other, walking in front to find a place to eat. Ko Hu Lian walked behind them, still crying. Dukan walked beside her, comforting her in a low voice. Why are you still crying? The clothes are all sold. Isn't that a good thing? You should be happy. Ko Hulian wiped her tears and whispered to her husband, I'm happy, Kan. It's just that I was so scared. I was afraid of losing such a large sum of money. I hate myself, you know? It was me who told my sister-in-law about the cheap clothes. After all, I'm the one with the most fault. I've been so depressed these past few days, and I've been blaming myself, but I didn't dare to say it out loud. Dukan looked at the woman walking lightly in front of them and patted his wife's hand. Don't blame yourself anymore. Even without you, your sister-in-law would have done something else. She's not a person who is content with her fate. Thonbin was holding a large bag of money and didn't dare to be careless or show off. She took everyone to eat something quick, bought some dry food for the road, and went directly to the train station. The train station was crowded. She gave the money to Dukan and told him to squeeze through the crowd to line up and buy the tickets. The three women led Chi Vian away from the crowd and stood close to each other. In that era, train tickets were very difficult to buy. Forget about sleeper car or seat tickets. It was a blessing to even get a standing ticket. Looking at the bustling crowd at the train station, Thonbin remembered the days when she could buy plane and high-speed train tickets online at any time with her phone. It really felt like a dream. They got standing tickets. The overnight train was perfect. They would be back in the county in one night, saving them the cost of a hotel room. However, they had also traveled the same way on the way there, which meant they hadn't slept for 2 days and 1 night. That night, they had to stay awake even more. On the way there, they could be a little careless, but on the way back, they were carrying a bag full of money. Thonbin became the main target of protection. Whether they were standing or found a space to sit on the ground, they protected Thonbin in the center. They said they would take turns keeping watch so the others could get some sleep, but aside from Chi Vian, who could sleep? The whole group stayed up all night with their eyes wide open. Early in the morning, they arrived at the county, got off the train, and went directly to Dukan's acquaintance's place to pick up the remaining 400 sets of clothes. Dukan also asked his acquaintance to rent a vehicle for them. This time, it was better. They were able to rent a horse-drawn cart to transport the goods. Thonbin paid for the cart to transport them and the goods back to the village. She also arranged with the man for him to come to the village to pick them up next Saturday morning, and they would go to the county again. They finally arrived home, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The journey had been really stressful, but no one rested. Everyone looked at Thonbin. Thonbin knew what they wanted and took out all the money. She hadn't counted it on the way, but she had a rough idea of the amount in her heart. When she opened it, Aunt Sao and Kodai Fu were stunned. This is so much money, Aunt Sao said incoherently. Yes, Mom, this is just from the 100 sets. We still have 400 sets left to sell, Dukan said proudly. Quick, count it, Aunt Sao urged her repeatedly. Thonbin began to count the money. When she finished, the total was over 200 yuan. These 100 sets of clothes only cost us a little over 100 yuan to buy, Thonbin said with a smile. Although she had gone through so many ups and downs in her previous life, her heart was filled with joy at this moment. Oh my God! Aunt Sao's eyes looked like they were about to pop out of her head. Looking at the 400 sets of newly returned clothes, she said anxiously, Quick, alter those sets. Thonbin laughed. Don't rush, Mom. Everyone hasn't slept in 2 days and 2 nights. Let's go to sleep and rest before we work. If it were up to Ko Hulian, she definitely wouldn't sleep and would continue working, but Dukan stopped her, insisting that she rest.